ethereal planes, cults, demon children, monsters, and fog. Lots and lots of fog. So come along with us as we journey into the fog to discuss all things Silent Hill. What's up, Moongoons? Welcome to the Horrible Horror Podcast, the podcast where we watch the worst of the worst in horror movies. Movies so bad they're scary. I'm your host, Lord Marshall Hampton. With me today is not Aaron. He's still pussing out on hiatus somewhere. Nachos is not here. Neither is Chris Samples, and that's okay because I don't need any of them. I need an expert in today's subject matter because we're doing Silent Hill. We're doing a retrospective of the games, the movies. I needed somebody who knows their shit, who's been in the fog with me, who knows what they're talking about. And so none other than Mr. Cincinnati Jeff. That's right, Cincinnati Jeff from Here Comes the Spooky is joining me again today.
What's going on, everybody? That's right. The fans out there for the Horrible Horror Podcast asked for less nachos. So we are giving you less nachos.
Less nachos. Yes, that was an actual request. We love you, buddy. But yes.
What? No, that guy's at home right now with salmonella because he pet a turtle and then he fucking didn't have the foresight as an almost 40-year-old to wash his hands before he ate food. F that guy. I love that guy.
True story.
Yeah, that's a real thing. That's a real thing, listeners. We love him though.
All right, so nachos, get better soon. Get over just wash your fucking hands, you filthy animal.
We love to hate you.
But I've been wanting a little background about what we're doing this week. One, we are covering Silent Hill, as we've said a couple times now. We're going to cover the games and the movies, or at least the first three games, the big three. We might briefly gloss over some of the others, but we're going to mostly focus on the first three. This is something I've been wanting to do for a while, because I know way back on Here Comes Spooky, they've been doing the Resident Evil series. I think, how far have you guys gotten? You've gotten through Code Veronica, I know that.
So we've done 0, 1, 2, 3, and Code Veronica. So okay. Aaron was like,
the OG one.
Yeah, he's like, we can do some more. And I was like, talking to Nachos, I was like, I mean, I want to do more, but like the hard part about doing more is like the next game is 5.
5 sucks because I guess you're just not going to cover 4.
Well, no. I'm sorry. We did do 4.
You did
I apologize.
Do 4.
We did do 4.
We did do
the next gen. I do apologize because that one was a recent one. Yeah. So now we're up to 5, and it's just like, how much time can I really spend on Chris punching that rock?
Yeah. I mean, goddamn that movie. But anyway, and in the past, like we did a brief touch of Castlevania, and we wanted to do some. And I love Silent Hill. Aaron never got into it. Back in the day, like he was a Resident Evil guy through and through. Like I don't know if he even ever played the first game. I don't know. My buddy in high school, Ty, that was friends with us. He was a guy I could talk Silent Hill with. But so I'm excited to do this. I've been looking for it, and I wanted to find, lucky that somebody else who has experience with the games, like Eric or Cincinnati Jeff, is nice to have on, because Aaron would have been like, I don't know what any of that is. I don't know what to talk about.
So I had a very similar experience growing up, like, and even talking to Nachos, he's like, look, I've played the first one, familiar with, the second one a little bit, and some of the third. I don't think he's beaten those, but like, I didn't really have a lot of friends who played this franchise. Everybody, and myself included, right? They're from the Resident Evil camp.
Yeah, well, I mean, Resident Evil did come out first. Come out a few years beforehand, actually. Mm-hmm. Like, what, 96? I think was first Resident Evil. Silent Hill came out in 99, mm-hmm. I think. And so it did get the cornerstone on the market because it was like kind of the first massively successful one to hit. But there's some, and I don't get me wrong, I loved Resident Evil. Loved them. Still love the games. But there's something about Silent Hill to me that was, I think, better, dare I say, better than Resident Evil. because they were by far the scarier of the games.
Absolutely.
They were between jump scares, just intense moments, and the psychological what the fuck's going on, mess with your head shit. Silent Hill had just knocked Resident Evil out of the water and all that, because Resident Evil then barely after the first game, and even halfway through the first game, became more of just almost more just I want to say more of like an action adventure game with puzzles and a case shooting some weird monsters and zombies. Silent Hill was seen kind of kept that suspenseful horror throughout the entire game and throughout at least the first 3 games. I will say that. Like after that, then maybe I don't know, but there's something about Silent Hill that always just resonated with me, and I still hold very dear. With that said, let's start off. We're going to start with the games first. I think I said this. So we're going to start with Silent Hill 1 and work our way through. Now, this is not going to be like a regular episode. I'm not going to break down the game scene by scene and how to play, because I'm not doing that. But I'm going to talk about some of the main locations in the game, some of the memories I have of this game. We'll talk, and Cincinnati, you've got some probably more in-depth notes on it, maybe about its development, the people behind it. At least since the first game, I have some of that in the second, third. But so if you have any, let's talk with that. Let's start with any background information that you have that we want to kick this off with for the first one.
So the Silent Hill.
Before you go.
Oh yeah.
Oh, there we go.
I'm having past Blue Ribbon because later I'm gonna mention Blue Velvet.
There we go. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And let's go.
Past Blue Ribbon. All right. So the Silent Hill franchise is sadly a Konami-owned IP.
Yes.
That being said, Konami hates you. Konami does not like you at all as a gamer. Konami likes money from pachinko machines and shit like that. So like they have very upfront been like, nah, we're not gonna really make video games anymore. Like occasionally they'll let someone squeeze out. So with that being said, know that because I bring that up because Konami is a terrible place to work. And Team Silent, which is what eventually this team was called, in 1996, this was just a group of like 4 guys, and I'm a white guy from the Midwest, so if I mispronounce their names, go ahead and correct me, but know that I don't care. So these Japanese gentlemen were sort of outcasts in Konami, and they had worked on other franchises that either they didn't fit in with the team or their ideas themselves didn't pan out. So they were just kind of like on their last leg. They were going to leave the company. Konami's like, just throw the 4 of these guys together and work on a budget. They wanted to make a budget Hollywood horror movie type of game. So basically, they wanted to do a Resident Evil ripoff.
Right.
That was Konami's direction, and they were like, okay, fine. So, the thing about this is that because they were like the redheaded stepchild inside of Konami, they were very much left alone to their own devices. They had a very small budget, and it was just a small group of guys. And so when they started out, it was like a 2D game, but on next gen, which was the PlayStation at the time.
Yeah, well, it's just the first one came out on, I think, the first PlayStation.
Yeah,
PlayStation 1. PS1 was the first game.
And so, Konami just never really checked on him. So they were just like, you know what? Fuck the limits of their plan. And they ended up, deciding that they're just going to make their own type of game. And they were like, instead of this action horror stuff, they wanted to do more of a play on your emotions kind of thing. So they were like, let's do this psychological horror, fear of the unknown kind of stuff. So the plot is very vague in the game, which I love in the first game. And even sometimes it even contradicts itself. Yes,
I believe that is one thing about Silent Hill. The plots and storylines get a little what?
It is not cut and dry.
It is not. No.
So the true plot, you're kind of left in the dark until the end. You sort of kind of have to figure it out for yourself. Director, here we go. Kiichiro Toyama.
Good enough for me.
Yeah, created most of the scenario. Hiroyuki Owaku wrote the text for most of the riddles, which again are very misleading in their puzzles. They didn't have much experience in horror movies in Japan at the time. These guys did, but they did like David Lynch movies. So UFOs, occult stuff, David Lynch. You see a lot of Twin Peaks stuff in here.
Oh, there's the key word for Aaron's probably busting his nut right now. You said the magic word.
You see a lot of Twin Peaks-ish style psychological just mindfuckery in this game. And You don't hear about it much in the first one, but it is mentioned. I think you probably have it in your notes. 2 and 3 always get a nod to it, but Jacob's Ladder.
Yeah, Jacob's Ladder, big in 2 and 3 for sure.
Yeah, and so like that whole the level design when you're in the nightmare world or whatever you want to call it. With the grating on the floors.
It's called the Other World.
Yeah, the Other. It's very much taken from a few scenes in Jacob's Ladder. So they also had never been to America. Again, this is the 90s, right? So yeah, the internet's it's still a baby. You can't just go and look anything up that you want at any given time. So they were just exposed to America through cinema, right? So they designed an American town based on what they saw through American cinema, which is why Silent Hill is set up the way that it is and looks the way that it is, because that's what they thought. So they were making a Japanese horror game for what they thought American audiences would like. So the other kind of big thing about that was, since they were originally going to make a 2D game, they transitioned to 3D modeling, which was still, again, in its infancy at the time. They basically kind of hoodwinked the Konami executives, because they were like, all right, show us what you've been working on for this past 6 months. And he's like, yeah, cool. Showed him 3D models, and they're like, that's not what we said. And he's like, yeah, I know, this is like way better, right? And they're like, yeah, cool, why don't we hand this off to, now you did a good job, let's hand it off to our professional teams. And he's like, oh, you know what, I kind of forgot how I did it.
Yeah.
He's like, what? So he's like, well, I tell you what, why don't you just let me work on it by myself and don't bring anybody else in, because they didn't want anyone brought in to kind of fuck with them and change things and get real corporate about it. So they were like, okay, so this one dude, and I don't have his name in here. Basically, he worked on the 3D models by himself for 2 years.
Yes.
Literally lived in the office.
Yeah, I was going to say, he slept in the office. Like, he slept underneath his desk, and he was basically, would hide in there at night when people go, so he could sleep there and work throughout the,
He would render the scenes of the cutscenes and the 3D models at night on 150 Unix-based computers after his coworkers had left.
Yes.
150 at one time. This man was doing this for 2.5 years.
Yeah, it's insane. And that Japanese work ethic is no joke. They are serious over there. But that's just so crazy to think about that now. Like, one guy doing something like that for 2 years, living in his office. Talk about a labor of love. Like, that is just something that you 100% fully believe in, that you have to do yourself. That's insane. That's so crazy. I remember I don't remember where I found it, but there was a really good YouTube video about Team Silent that I watched probably a month or two ago, and where I remember getting a lot hearing this, and it was fascinating. I wish I could remember what channel it was on or who did it, but it was fascinating read. And but anyway, I just want to say, or not read, but fascinating to watch and listen to. But do you have more? So let's go on. I don't want.
That's just a kind of a high level view of how they developed it. Yeah. Now, when they got done, the end product is very much what we got all over the world. Konami still had no faith in it whatsoever. They 1998 E3, which is not the highly commercial E3 that we are used to today,
nowhere near what it
is
now.
But still, Konami had a floor show presence. And so they showcased it, and they showed the cutscenes and some of the 3D models, and they got like massive applause, like a standing ovation basically, from the crowd of just people fucking walking by. So they were like, oh shit, maybe we should invest a little money in the advertisement of this thing.
Yeah.
So they showcased it at a European trade show. They even included a demo with it, with the original Metal Gear Solid in Japan. That they paid for a bunch of advertisement in magazines at that point because of that, and then it sort of took off.
That was back in the days where you could buy they did you could get the old Game Informer magazine, I think, Game Pro, I think, and even boxes too. They just give you here's the sample, a sample disc of demo of all these games. Nobody does it because so much is digital. But man, I just remember those days where you just buy something. Here's basically a free video game, basically.
Sure.
Or sample this out or try it.
You get shareware versions of stuff on PC. In Europe, they had a Sega Saturn magazine for Sega Saturn people, obviously. And one of the big RPGs there, they just gave you the first disc free. Wow. So imagine getting FF7, getting the whole first disc for free.
Yeah, that's insane.
Just in the mail. Just here you go.
Yeah, nobody does that anymore. That's crazy to think about. So let's skip ahead a little bit. Just so the game, finally gets released in 1999. At least in the States, it came out in 99. It may have come out earlier in Japan. I'm not 100% sure on that.
Like a few months, but they're both 99.
Okay. What was the? Do you have anything there on like how it was received, like this reception upon release?
Slowly, but like it grew because it's a PlayStation greatest hits.
Yeah, it is now.
So both the first and second one were, but they were slow because. And it always gets compared to it, and it just can't help it, right?
Resident Evil.
People were looking for Resident Evil. At this point in time, we had 3 Resident Evil games. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's 1999. Like, the PS2 was right around the corner. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, to get something like this, which, it doesn't have the world's best graphics, but, like, is just a beautiful game, it really just took a lot of word of mouth. Like, there was a ton of magazines that were like, again, slow, not a good Resident Evil clone. Like, that's what people were looking for. When they looked outside of it, though, and they were like, man, look at this crazy psychological horror. Like, that's when it started to build and things like that.
Yeah, you cannot look at it as Resident Evil clone. That does suck because they're both considered survival horror games, but they're so vastly different in just overall themes and play style and just... it's not fair to compare the two at all.
But everybody was doing Resident Evil type. Even Square had Parasite Eve, which is basically a Resident Evil style RPG. Essentially, it's a psychological. Have you ever played it?
No, I missed that one.
So it's a horror RPG, like a true RPG. But it's more Silent Hill, I'd say, than Resident Evil. But that was there.
Horror RPG would be interesting. I've never seen them be like RPGs, like where actually character development and plot lines. That would be cool.
They're great.
Like that. Now you're talking Square Soft, like Square Enix, or whatever.
Square Soft, back then.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I do remember
on the PS1,
both of them. I remember there was Clock Tower. I remember that. Played that one. Just a guy going on a giant pair of scissors, and that was almost more like point and click, old school kind of horror game. And then there was I never got into them, but I know they were big in Japan, and I guess they had a little bit of fun. But they're the Fatal Frame series, another survival horror one that came out around that time. Then was it Parasite? Parasite Eve was another I remember came out that was along same lines. I remember seeing trying to play that. But anyway, so that's basically the background of how Silent Hill came to be. Now the game itself, I do want to say one, like for those of you who play, everybody knows about the fog, and the fog is one of the big things about that game. But the fog actually served a couple purposes besides the fact that it's just add a kind of a scary, intense, what's lurking in the unknown, what you can't see theme to the game when you're playing. But it actually is also designed came about because of the processing power, I believe, of how limited, like they didn't have the memory or the computing power back on the old PlayStations to render all the environments so much, or because it was these new 3D models. So the fog actually would conceal all that and just reveal a low of the world at a time, which allowed the game to actually process and run better. Because without that, I think it would have been a broken mess. They wouldn't have been able to have the computing power to actually run the game, like you see like Resident Evil and stuff, where they didn't have that issue because it was just like one room at a time, room by room. Or Silent Hill, kind of in a way, was this kind of first. I don't want to say completely open world, but you could run really ever you wanted in Silent Hill. You just kind of run around on the open streets.
Yeah, you could go from one end to the other essentially as long as your path wasn't blocked by physical obstacles.
Yeah, so unlike in Resident Evil games where you're just like room by room to room to room, and so you all had the loading screen, the doors opening, that's the loading screen, where Silent Hill didn't have that. So the fog actually was one way they helped get around that, was and which was just a very, I guess, serendipitous matching there, because it just added what the fuck what am I about to run into, that eeriness, that creepiness of the game. It
was annoying at first, and that's probably, it had a big push at the first point when it came out, and then people got it and they're like, what is this fog? Like, I can't see where I'm going, and you can't. And
there's times when you can't. Yeah.
Silent Hill feels like it suffers from the craziest, world's largest, widest streets. Like, when you're hairy and you're fucking running across, you're like, why does it take me so long to literally cross from one side of the street to the other?
The streets I feel like they're half a mile wide.
Yeah, I'm like, this is huge. This is like 8 cars wide.
Yeah. That's one of the funniest things about that.
So like, like the fog is so bad, you literally can't even see across the street. So it's kind of annoying, but at the same time, it's cool. And they use the same mechanic when you go to the nightmare dark world, the other world. Instead of fog, it's just dark.
Yeah, but you had the flash. Yeah. But again, I think for its time, like nobody else was doing it, and I think. Yeah, it was kind of, it could get annoying at times, but to me, the first time I played, like I was scared. Hell, because again, Resident Evil, like you could see everything on your screen, where everything you could see where the zombies are, you can see this, you can see that. Silent Hill was like, I can't see shit. I'm gonna go this way. What the fuck's about to jump out at me? Except when you get the and then you get the make it even more intense, and you start hearing the radio. It's like, oh fuck, something's here. Where's that? Where's that?
Yeah, it's so
like,
weird.
I'm like, ah!
You get the radio, and if you could because you can turn it off.
Yeah.
Because it will also, because the bad guys can hear it too.
Yeah.
And it'll alert them to your presence.
And the same with the flashlight. They were, if you were in the dark, you could turn the flashlight off, and the monsters were attracted to the light. So it was like a two-way sword. Like you could see, but they can see you, and they attract. So again, that's just great little game mechanics that nobody else was doing at the time. They made it so cool.
Yeah, I love clicking on the radio, and it would say like it will emit white noise, which at the time, I'm a kid, like I'm a early teenager. I'm like, what the fuck is white noise, right? Which in the game doesn't really sound like white noise. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it sounds like a goddamn alarm going off. I'm like, not quite sure what that noise is, but like either way, it lets you know when the bad guys come. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, it was a great mechanic. Excuse me, I had a burp. Now, when it comes to the first game, there were some, Silent Hill is also known for some of its very memorable locations because it is in the same town. So you do get a lot of you'll see in the second game, like they reuse some of the locations, kind of link everything together, which is very cool. Of course, for everybody who plays, for me, probably for most people, when I think Silent Hill, I think besides the fog, I think of the school because that's the first real place you go to in the first game, Midwich School, elementary school, and that is where shit really got real in that game. Some of my favorite moments from the elementary school, I'm not going to take step by step, but just some of my favorite moments, facts, or whatever, is one that always comes to mind is you're walking around, and this is when you're in the other world at this point, I believe, when this happens, when it switches over, but you get a phone call. The phone starts ringing, and there's no power, there's no reason why a phone starts ringing in this metal, empty, rusted out room. You're like, what the fuck? Why is our phone ringing? And you pick it up, and it's like your daughter, this little girl, going
Cheryl.
Like, yeah, it's like, Daddy, help me, Daddy, where are you? Daddy, help me, Daddy. And then this goes dead. And that first phone call, I was like, fuck. It's just, again, it's like this psychologically, like what? It messed with me, man. It was such a good moment.
For me, it was you're in the school, and I'm sure you got down there. So if I'm stepping on your toes, let me know. I don't want to go on your lawn.
No,
you get in the elevator, and you've been in that elevator a few times, all right? And you take it up, you're like, okay, first floor, second floor, third floor, and you're like, what the fuck? I can't go anywhere. You go back in, and you're like, fourth floor? The fucking button was not here before.
Yes. Yeah.
It just appears out of nowhere, and that freaks me. I get goosebumps right now talking about it, dude. Even recently when I played it, I kind of forgot that happened, and I was like, where do I go? And I get back to the game, I'm like, fucking button, god damn it.
Some of the other there's a good jump scare in there. I will again. Resident Evil has a few jump scares in the first game too, but it's again. I think it's in the other world where it's kind of like a 2-part scare because you first happen you're in this kind of like a locker room, and when you're in the normal world. You open up this locker. You open in this locker, like bang, 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 and you open it up, and you get the old cliche cat jump scare.
Yeah,
cat jumps out.
I know what you're talking about.
And then you come back later in the other world, and the same locker, go bam, 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 and just like you see blood coming out of it. You open up the locker, and there's no cat this time. There's nothing there. It's just filled with blood.
Yes.
It's like, what the fuck happened? And then when you walk away from the locker, the cat locker, another locker opens up, and this dead body just falls right out in front of me. Like, what the fuck? Where'd that come from?
There's constantly, you go into rooms and there's nothing in it, and like you go to turn around and leave, and all of a sudden there's like noise behind you, and like they make it because it's not a stationary camera.
Yes.
Because it's sort of a floating camera that you can actually control.
Control the camera.
Yeah, you can hold one of the shoulder buttons and force it behind Harry at any time.
It does not have suffer from the tank controls that Resident Evil did. It was much more fluid, and the camera's moving. So it was easier
depending on where that camera was, and you go to those empty rooms to look for something, go to leave, there'd be a noise, and depending where the camera was, that's the speaker that would fucking highlight the noise more than the other one. So like it would pan left or right kind of thing. Oh, it got me every time.
And then
what is that? Is something gonna get me?
Yeah, and then you had like, let's talk about the boss, like not the bosses, but the monsters you first encounter in the school. You have these. Okay, there's like the creepy babies with the knives. You get those, these weird.
They're like children.
They're like children with knives, right? Just like bald, no hair, just some meat sacks running around with knives on it. But then the creepy ones aren't even those. They're the creepy shadow babies.
Yeah.
They're like squeak, like, squeak, squeak, and like, what the fuck is that? And then you see like this shadow of this baby running past you on the screen, and it's like, what the fuck was that?
That's a mind fuck because they don't hurt you.
No,
and you can't attack them.
No, but you see this shadow baby go across. It's like, what? Like. By that point, you're so like used to everything. Like you're scared of it. It's like it is. It's a great creep out.
And that shit. This is what Team Highland was so good about because you get used to those guys.
Yeah.
And then later on in the game, there are some that
can
fucking attack you.
Yes. And then later in the game, when they come back, they can actually start.
They fucking start stabbing you. And you're like, what? Can I kill them now? Because they can fucking attack me.
Another great moment in the school is just you walk is the crying ghost girl in the bathroom. You walk into one of the bathrooms and you just hear a girl crying in the stall. You can't open the stall. You can't talk to her. Oh, you just hear this weeping. And again, it's so good. Like it works so well. It's just a freaky, scary moment. Like, why am I hearing crying? What happened in this bathroom? But then, last few things I'll mention about the school is one, it has some good puzzles, like the rubber ball and the drain puzzle. Like that's just cool. A good puzzle. And then I'll say this one for last, but then so at the end, near the end of it, you go down the elevator you're talking about and into the courtyard, and there's the first time you see a courtyard, there's like this big bloody like sigil, like ritualistic, like almost like D&D, like summoning circle, or like it's not like a pentagram, but it's like a weird
it's
occult
a
symbol.
Very big occult symbol.
Yeah.
There's very conflicting occult symbols as far as religions go in this game, because they were just kind of like throwing everything at the wall. There's like Egyptian Ankhs,
yes,
and like the references to like Jewish deities.
Well, yeah, like
that.
number 2, I think 2 or 3. One of them has like, so obviously you find an Ankh, a Star of David, a cross. Like you find a bunch of like different religious stuff. But anyway, so then when you go down to like the other world and you go down to this courtyard again, it's like, I don't know if it's the same courtyard, but it's a different courtyard. But there's this guy like on a post. And it's not quite a crucifix. He's just on a post, and he just erupts into fire. I'm like, what the fuck? And then the first boss shows up, which is this giant lizard thing. And when it's like, doesn't like, what the fuck is that thing? And he's like, okay, it's not so bad. But then when his head peels open sideways for the first time, it's such a great like, holy shit moment that it's so good. The creatures like for again, like we've seen the zombies before, but a bunch of times by now, but these creature designs are so unique and so cool. I also want to mention for those who do play, but Behavior, the people behind Dead by Daylight, did a tremendous job when they imported the Midwich Elementary map into Dead by Daylight. It's so true to the source material, like very much like the Raccoon Police Department, but this one is just so good. Like so many little details from the game that they put in there, like the crying girl in the bathroom, the body that falls out of the locker, some of the cages, and they did such a great job keeping true to the original source material and importing into that game that I do want to give them credit for that. But the school is just such an iconic first.
Oh, it's fantastic
location.
Because you don't even know that you're in the nightmare world because you solve all the puzzles. You've been to the entire school, and that's what. One thing we didn't get to is the map, right?
Yes, the maps.
In Resident Evil, you get maps. It tells you what rooms you've been in and out of.
Yeah.
Here, your map constantly updates with marks that Harry makes. If he sees something that he might have to go back to later, he'll write it down on the map.
Yeah.
And you can look at it. If you go to a door that's locked, he'll tell you, like it marks that it's locked.
Right, yeah.
Like it's so fantastic. And so you go through the school, you're like, I've done everything. And then you like find this underground tunnel, and you come back out and you're in the courtyard of the school you just left. You're like, am I on the other fucking side? And then you're like, then you start walking around again, and you're like, all the floors are made of fencing, and there's all these weird bodies everywhere. You're like, I'm in the school, but I'm not in the same school. Then you check the map, you're like,
I'm in the school.
I'm in the school, but all my shit's missing, and all these doors are locked again. Like it's just that's the pinnacle level of Silent Hill.
Yes. After that, the next big case is the hospital. where you're running around trying to dodge nurses and doctors that basically seem to have fetuses growing out of the back of them. These aren't the famous the iconic nurses. They come late in the other games. But these nurses and doctors, they're just like hunched over, shoulders slumped. They swing knives at you, but they have like this like weird like fleshy like fetus thing coming out of their back. And then there's a cool moment in the basement where you burn vines off a grate.
That was fun. You use isopropyl alcohol.
Yeah.
Which even when you look at the description, does not say it's flammable.
No, that's one of the puzzles. Like, as a kid, like, if I was younger playing this, I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do? Because it doesn't say flammable or burnable. It's just like,
I think there's a book somewhere in the
I'm sure
hospital that, like, no, not the strategy guide. Like, there's like a book or something in the hospital that says, like, you know, isopropyl alcohol is flammable.
Yeah.
Like, gives the hint, but you have to remember it. There's no note or memo system like Resident Evil.
Yeah.
You need to remember it. Like, so, yeah, you're right. Like, for younger people, that you need to know that isopropyl alcohol
is flammable.
And as a kid, I'd be like, is that really? And then I'd burn my house. And I'd be like, Kanani owns me a house. But what a great science project.
And then when you enter that room, you hear the sounds of like glass breaking, these loud noises. But again, like I said, the room's just empty. It's just one of these mind fucks. You hear the shit, but there's nothing there. It's just a good, scary moment. And also, that's where you first meet Lisa Garland, who was one of the iconic characters from the first game.
Her scenes are just
so good.
Chef's kiss.
Yeah, Lisa Garland's awesome.
She is so cool.
Other locations, the antique store that has an altar that bursts into flame when you investigate it. It's just like, oh, what's this? You go and investigate, it, poof, erupts into flames. It's like, what the fuck? The mall.
There's a mall. Yeah, of course there's a mall.
There's always a mall.
Yeah.
But
it's America. There's a mall.
You come in and all the TVs come on at the same time playing static, and then images of like your daughter calling out to you or playing on the TV.
Imagine playing this 30 years from now, right? Our grandkids, and they're gonna be like, what the fuck is a mall?
Yeah.
What the hell is that?
What's a mall?
You went to a building and bought clothes?
Yeah.
You didn't just fucking order them? It's weird. Mall.
Just creepy. And then you fight like the large burrowing caterpillar boss.
The larva boss.
The larva boss. Yeah.
So that later, because there's a second boss fight. Not too much after that's that evolved form.
Yeah. I was gonna say, it kind of seems like Dark Souls kind of ripped off that boss when in its second form, very Dragon Ball Z, very Japanese altering forms thing. Then later you make it to the resort where you're introduced to this weird drug ring subplot, which is a really odd thing I think in that game. There's like because you meet Dr. Kaufman at the hospital, and he comes in. He comes and goes, but he's involved in this. But like, there's like a drug trafficking ring going on in Silent Hill, apparently. That it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
It seems out of place.
It's very out of place. It's like, is this just like a red herring? It's just like, just to throw like, yeah, other shit goes on in this town too, besides just this horrific stuff.
The movie cuts that out, and I appreciate it because even.
The movie plots can be confusing enough for some people, but you don't need to add this side plot.
That was weird. Even as a kid, I was like, this really feels out of place.
Yeah,
I'm all on board with the scary occult shit, but drugs.
Yeah, like I thought the same thing too. Like, why is this?
Even today, when I replayed
it, did not need to be there. It doesn't really add anything to it. Just kind of, it's like what?
They get to it more a little bit in the second and third one, but
yeah, you have to remind me when you get there. Also, I noticed on the map that South Park is part of Silent Hill. I did not realize that when I first. But South Park is apparently.
There's the South Park.
There's the South Park. And then you also, it's weird. Speaking of the drugs, you find drugs in the gas tank of a motorcycle because video game logic. Why not,
dude? And I love this. And so you've already been. It's so crazy because the hospital is in a separate part of Silent Hill. So when you get to the school and stuff, you're like, I've been everywhere.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, because you try to leave, and like every exit out of town is like the missing road.
Yeah, the road or tunnels caved in, or the road just missing.
Gone.
Yeah.
So then all of a sudden, like it opens up, and you're like, okay, I'm in a new part. So you get a new town map, and then you go to like later on to where the boats and stuff are, and you find the drugs, and then there's a new town map. But what's really neat, I love that they do this because like games back then did not do this. Like guilty ones being like Pokemon, fantasy, major RPGs, even Resident Evil, because if you got to run through that fucking mansion, there is no quick path unless you've unlocked a shortcut. When you've got to go, like, it's like, go back to the thing, go back to the hospital or whatever. Instead of having to make that whole trek back, They just essentially time travel Harry. He takes a couple steps out of the building, and then boom, he's in front of it again. And I'm okay with that because there's no need for me to have to run all the way through. And they knew that. They're like, let's fucking cut 15, 20 minutes out of this travel here. Yeah. Like, all right, cool. And I was never mad about it. I thought it was a really neat mechanic.
Yes, I agree. Because that was one thing about, especially Resident Evil games were terrible at that. Right? You get one puzzle piece, and then you have to go all the way back to get the other one. There was so much backtracking in those games. It was so infuriating.
Yeah.
I felt like you spent half your time just running backwards.
If you wanted to explore Silent Hill like that, you could.
You totally could.
But for plot's sake, they're like, let's just cut it out and just move them ahead. We know where they're going. It's like, done.
Then after that, you basically get to the lighthouse, where the whole top floor of the lighthouse is like this big glowing rune. It's like glowing, and then you see this ghostly image of a girl fade away in front of you. It's like, wait, what? Why is there a glowing rune on the floor, and why is there this ghost girl here? And
they're like, everyone's like, get to the lighthouse. There's like a whole subplot, like, get to the fucking lighthouse. You get there, that happens, 10 seconds, and then you're like,
well, that's that.
All right, I guess I gotta leave the lighthouse. So then you leave the lighthouse, you're like, what a fucking trip, man.
Yeah, it's what you're like, yeah. And,
but that's like, it's just very untraditional, and that's what I like about it.
Then you get the amusement park, which honestly I forgot was even in the first game.
Fuck that part. It's creepy. There's no map for the area. And like when Harry doesn't have a map, it tells you don't have a map for the area, which makes you feel like I'll find one. You don't find it. There is no map for this fucking area. And you have to find the carousel.
You better pull out a piece of paper and start drawing your own map.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God, I have one. I literally have a fucking old one, and I pulled it out, and I'm like, I know exactly how to get to the fucking carousel. And I just follow the fence line to get to it because, dude, everything's dark. Mm-hmm. You can't see shit. Everything looks the same. Fuck that area. And there's only like two bad guys. It's just super creepy because there's all these carnival rides going on, and you can't see shit.
My note was like a whole lot of fucking nothing, basically, until you find Sybil now possessed on a carousel. And then you throw some drugs at her.
Yeah, this is great. This is one of Silent Hill has two side quests essentially, and one of them is this like strange liquid that you find. Yeah. That you don't even know you need to collect, and you don't have to collect.
You don't have to,
but it will affect your ending.
Yes, it does affect endings.
So
and this is one of the turning points right here.
Exactly. So you can either douse her with the drug,
or you have them. If you don't have them, you're fucked.
You just have to kill someone.
You have to kill. You have
to progress one way or the other.
Yep. Again, which is very cool because and this is again before days of the internet, so you didn't have to walkthroughs like, oh, well, you just is the luck where you found it, you did or not, and then correct me if I'm wrong, but figuring out the fact that you actually have to throw the drugs at her is like who just almost like a shot in the dark. Try this?
Pure circumstance.
Yeah, it's like there's no hints. Like there's no caption says this drug will works on possessed people, makes shit like that. It's like
kills the weird things.
Speaking of which, so you throw the drugs on Sybil, and then it makes like the weird Jason demon sperm thing crawl out from her. From like Jason Goes to Hell. You do find out that at this point the daughter is adopted, and you found her on the side of a highway supposedly.
So you actually find that out in the beginning of the game.
Okay.
So in the game itself you do find this out, but this is one of the neat parts about it. In the very beginning of the game, a lot of games didn't even do this back then. There used to be what's called an attract mode, and it was on arcade games where you would see levels like you'd see Mortal Kombat, there'd be fights playing out. Mm-hmm. You're like, that fucking looks cool. It attracted you in.
Yes.
Silent Hill had that because Konami's big fucking arcade company, and so they have an attract mode where you can see certain scenarios being played out by the Team Silent and how they would do it, so you can remember later, like, oh, I should do it that way. But interwoven in between all that is CGI cutscenes of Harry picking up Harry and his wife finding Cheryl on the side of the road and adopting her, and them driving into Silent Hill, and Sybil, the cop, passing them on the bike.
Okay, yeah. I didn't realize. Yeah, because I counted that on especially on number 2, I think, or 3 for sure. I know, but I do count about the days of I didn't think about it as a track, but I thought it was like the days of the pre-game cinematic intros, and I was like, man, I kind of miss those. Games don't do that anymore. Like you put it in the game, and you had like that, like you said, that intro. Like you see Sybil driving the bike, and kind of like this intro stuff, and kind of these cinematic inductions to the game that just nobody does it now. It's just like start the game, here you go.
Yeah,
they don't do that,
and that's kind of how this was, because if you just start it up, you don't get any of that backstory. You don't see those things if you just hit start, new game, go. You wake up in Silent Hill, and Harry's like, what the fuck's going on? I have to find my daughter. So you're like, okay, my name's Harry, and I got to find some girl. That's all I've got right now.
Yeah. So, okay, so that's great. So normally then, this is where you would find out the daughter's adopted, and you find out it's that way. I do like the visuals of the creepy carousel with the voiceover this part, because there's some voiceover that's really good here. The ghost girl shows up again at this point, and she uses like the force or something just to knock you over. She's like, boom, there you go.
Drug power, man.
Yeah, drug power. And then the Floros pyramid thing shoots lasers at her, which is it's so fucking weird.
You picked up this
it's like a little pyramid thing.
Yeah, it's basically like the Chinese puzzle box from Hellraiser, but it's a
triangle.
It's a triangle.
Yeah, pyramid.
You've been carrying it around for no reason.
No reason whatsoever.
You don't know what it does, and all of a sudden it releases itself from your inventory and shoots lasers at Alessa.
It's like, what?
And it's like, oh, okay, so that thing does that, I guess.
Yeah. You learn the ghost girl's really Alessa, Dahlia's daughter. Dahlia shows up again at this point, which I didn't introduce her earlier.
This is a crazy witch bitch that you run into a few times.
Dahlia and Alessa vanish. It's a magical light as one of them screams. And that's it. And then you wake up and you're back in the hospital with Lisa. But it's really not the hospital now. And
you wake up with her so many times.
Yeah.
So many times you just like leave a room and all of a sudden you're like back in with Lisa. You're like, the fuck? Am I going to get to where I'm going?
Yeah.
What is going on here? And like Lisa's acting like you've never left the room.
Yeah.
You're like, bitch, I just did like 2 hours of like stuff.
Yeah.
Where was I?
Which when you try to make sense of this in your brain, it makes it in the more like, again, that psychological, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, you're
what's
like,
happening?
you feel like you're missing something, and you're like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Like it's weird. It's frustrating, but fun at the exact same
time. Next, I just basically, you're in what's called nowhere.
You save the game, and it literally, every time you save, it tells you where you are. When you save here, it says nowhere.
Yep. So there's giggling girl sounds that were very creepy. I gotta say, this place is pretty trippy. And you go in one room, and there's this antique store, and then you go in another door, and you're back in the school. So it's like you're teleporting from all these previous locations by going to one door and out into the other. It's
and
really
sometimes
weird.
They're like you're in the nightmare version. Sometimes you're in the regular Silent Hill version.
It's fucking trippy. You meet up again with Lisa. At this time, Lisa starts begging you to stay with her, and then this scene fucks me up, man. It was at the first time
good.
First time I saw this, it fucked me up. So Lisa's begging you to stay. She's like, "Don't leave me. I don't want to be alone. I don't want to be alone." But Harry's like, "Well, come with me." But she's like, I can't. I feel like I have to stay in this room, but I don't want to leave. I'm so scared. And then she starts bleeding out of every orifice. Like, just blood starts running down her face, out
from
of her
her
eye.
soft, wet eye hole.
Oh, I got a little something for you here.
Soft, wet eye hole.
There it is. She gave me a boner.
And basically, you just run out of the room, and you like slam the door closed and use your body to keep her from getting out. And
she's like dying behind you.
Yeah, and she's like crying and weeping behind you.
She tells you, she's like, I realize what's been going on. I've been dead the whole time. And you're like, what? What's going on? Like, so did you ever go back in that room?
I
So
don't remember.
After she dies, you can go back in there.
Okay.
And where her body, where she died, or whatever happened to her, is her diary.
Oh.
And you can read her diary, and it's very much. I love it because it's the only one that's very much like the Resident Evil files, where it's like itchy tasty. It's very much like her going crazy.
That's my gamer tag on Xbox. Itchy tasty.
But you know what I'm saying? Like it's very much in the vein of that. It's several pages, and it's kind of like that as she's slowly losing her mind. Like the first couple of pages, so it sort of makes sense, and they just get really, really like lots of blood. Doctor, do this. Like I know, go. Like it's very. She's going
I
nuts.
think I've missed that. I didn't know about that part.
Oh yeah, it's neat. It's neat.
Yeah, and then Harry just says, "I'm sorry." Immediately leaves the room, and it fades to black. It's so creepy and sad. It's an incredible moment. Oh yeah, I do have a note. When you go back and Lisa's gone, you find her journal. There you go. Also, somewhere in this nowhere, there's a bag, and there's a key and a bag of jelly beans, which for sure, why not? That's like the weirdest thing. Of all the weird shit that goes on in this game, why is there a key inside a bag of jelly beans?
Yeah, you find it in Harry, you click on it, it's like, Harry's like, a bag of jelly beans, should I open it? And it's like, yeah. And then he opens it, like you see him open it, and the fucking jelly beans go everywhere. And then he's like, got this key. And I'm like, dude, you haven't eaten for 10 hours. You should be more upset about those fucking jelly beans, homie.
I literally wrote, that might be the weirdest thing in this game. The key is
just
jelly
random
beans.
ass fucking jelly beans. But they've got some like weird. puzzles at this point in the game. It's not even weird. It's like you go into a room. It's like, you need a key. Okay, so then you go to another room, get the key just to go back to that room. It's like, boy, we really could have cut this out. But whatever. I guess.
You find a video of Lisa talking about caring for a child that wouldn't die.
Oh,
which is it's so good.
So you've been actually carrying this VHS tape around for a little bit. If you try to watch it in the hospital, when you're in normal Silent Hill, it's all staticky and real fucked up, and like you can barely get anything out of it. But when you get to this part of the game and you find the TV again, you play it and you get the full video, and you're like, this is creepy.
Yeah, it is. It's so good. A child being Alessa, so there's their connection there. There's also something banging inside a giant fridge, which is kind of creepy.
Oh my god, this part! Did you die here the first time?
Yeah, I think it's probably the very first. Yeah, probably.
I'm such a collector whore, dude. Like, if in this game you don't know what shit does, like randomly, removes itself from the inventory and lasers bitches to death. So you're like, I better pick up everything I can. And so you see this sword that's like jammed between two giant industrial refrigerator doors, and you're like, I'm taking that. And you take it. And you're like, cool, nothing happens. And you go to fucking leave, and then something's banging in the fridge, and it jumps out and it kills you instant death.
Yeah.
The only way you can avoid it, and you need that item, by the way, is you collect a ring that's like the ring of locking or some shit like that. It's a real lame-ass name. But it's like a fucking ring. It looks like it goes on your finger. It's not a lock. But you attach it to the two chains that are swinging on the refrigerator door, and you're like, cool. Like, there's no hint to do that. You just have to kind of figure it out. That shit's...
That's so much of, like, the lockpick from Resident Evil, like, the master of unlocking, the ring of locking. It's just so bad.
Like, so you might as well call it, like, the ring of locked +2.
Yeah. It sounds like a D&D item.
Yeah.
Then there's also this cool room where... this is where we talk about the... it's like this... You walk in this room and just eyes all over the floor, all over the walls. You just painted eyes staring at you, and you get an ankh, and you hear some more child weeping again, which just fucks with it just messes with your head. And then that's when you start getting ghostly visions of like the past. It's so weird. It's creepy. You find Sybil holding Dahlia at like gunpoint while your daughter sits on the floor, in front of like this creepy like corpse like person in a wheelchair. And you're like, what the fuck? Who is that? And this is where you find out like that Dahlia has basically been lying to you the whole game, and the whole game she's been like you've been actually helping her achieve her evil goals instead of stopping them. Mm-hmm. So it's like the big twist moment of the game. Like, what the fuck?
She's trying to release Samael.
Samael, yes, their god or demon, whatever. So Sybil shoots Dahlia, who seems to be bulletproof now, and then uses the Force to send Sybil flying backwards. Mm-hmm. Dahlia tells it Alyssa's actually still alive and trapped in this endless nightmare. So at this point, the endings get really fucking weird here.
Oh, yeah, these are great.
Because this is basically the big showdown now. So basically, you have Cheryl shares the same soul as Alessa, who Dahlia needs... So Alessa/Cheryl can give birth to a new god that will wipe the world clean in a fiery apocalypse or some shit like that. And then in a bursting, blinding light, Cheryl/Alessa turns into like an adult angel sort of person. Dr. Kaufman comes back now for sure. Why the fuck not? Shoots Dahlia, telling her to stop this. He pulls out the weird drug bottle that you found in the motorcycle earlier because he got mad at you for finding it. He takes it from you at that point and way back then. Kaufman throws the bottle at the angel Cheryl/Alessa. The bright lights go away and you hear Cheryl/Alessa scream. Dahlia starts laughing. Kaufman says that's not supposed to happen and backs away as a giant winged monster god emerges out of Cheryl/Alessa and takes flight. So then it starts shooting down fiery lightning bolts, which kill Dahlia instantly, burning her to death. She just goes up in flames. So that's it. Now this brings you to the big final boss fight of the game, where you have to shoot the flying monster god as it rains down
the incubus,
the firing lightning bolts down on you. So when it finally dies and falls to the ground, it bursts into a bright ball of white light, turns back into Angel Cheryl/Alessa as more fire just rains down from the heavens. Angel Alessa hands you a baby, which you take. Alessa, who is fading,
No questions asked.
No questions asked. Alessa is fading out of existence. She points off in some direction.
We're getting into this shit.
Sybil regains consciousness along with Kaufman. Then Lisa Garland shows up. She's decided to leave the hospital room, or she's back now. She crawls up through a metal floor. Grabs Kaufman, pulls him back away from the glowing light. He screams as Lisa pulls him down out of sight. Like, you ain't going nowhere, bitch. You're coming with me. Harry, aka you, with the baby and Sybil, if she's still alive at this point, if you didn't have to kill her because you didn't have the drugs to throw on her, because of course, why would you not do that? Run for a ball of light. The ground shakes as fire continues to rain down. Then all of a sudden, you and Sybil just stop, curl up in like the feet into a ball as the screen fades to white. Harry stands up in slow motion as music plays, looks up into the black sky that's still raining down fire. Angel Alessa now is seen again with outreached hands, or maybe pointing hands. I don't know if she's pointing to outreach because these graphics are hard to tell at that point. Harry with the baby and Sybil run through the darkness and flames. Angel Alessa dies again. Then we see Harry and Sybil running back through the fog and snow or ash, whatever it is. White light fills the screen. Roll the credits. That's how the game. That's the fucking what? It's such a weird final closing, ending boss closing to a game. Like, it's
the way
so
you
odd.
read it, the way you went over it, made me feel like I was watching a horrible horror movie.
Yeah,
And I'm like, I guess that is yeah, no. That is, and it's not an oversimplification of it. That's word for word.
No, yeah.
So there's 5 endings to this game. One's a joke ending.
Yes. I don't think I covered all the endings to this game, because I know in 2 and 3 they have other endings, which I covered those for sure. But I will say, okay, I will say after the credits for this ending, for this one that I had, we see a scene of Harry and his wife finding a baby in a cemetery. Only now, that's the scene you originally see in like flashbacks in the opening of the movie. But at this point now, instead of the wife, it's Sybil, which is weird. Because like, so is Sybil now the wife? What the fuck's going on? Then it crossfades to a scene of Lisa running down a hallway with Kaufman chasing her. He catches her, and this turns into now like a blooper reel. Like, it's a movie, and they're just showing you outtakes from like these characters are real, because
they're not CGI scenes that are anywhere else in the game.
No, they're not.
These are in every credit.
Yeah,
these are no matter what ending you get. This part is
okay, because I wasn't sure about, because it's so weird. It's like Lisa and Kaufman start giggling, laughing, like, oh, we messed up, and then it does this for like. Then, like, you get the credit sequence where each character is acting silly in their game scenes. Like, you see, like, Dahlia, like, running for the camera, like, kissing the camera. And then, like, freeze frames and, like, their name is like Dahlia. And then you get,
because they were presenting it like a Hollywood film.
That makes total sense now. When you said, I just, right before you said it, dawned on me, like, oh, yeah, that thing you said about them trying to make it a film. But, again, it's just such a weird ending. At least with that particular one. I'm sure they're all strange, but so what are the endings that you
all right, so there are 4 technical endings and then 1/5 extra joke ending, which actually is really funny because the joke endings actually get canonical to the other joke endings in the later games.
Yeah, I know about the joke ending and
it's not my favorite ending. The dog one is my favorite ending.
Is that in this one too?
No, that's in 2. That's in 2. That's my favorite ending.
Okay.
But
we'll talk about the dog ending when we get to
that
it.
is fun. So for this one, my favorite ending of all time actually is the bad ending. So to get the bad ending, it's not like Resident Evil where it's either time-based or save data-based.
Yeah.
You can save as many fucking times as you want. You can take as long as you want.
It's probably as if you kill Sybil.
It's the side quest. If you kill Sybil but don't do the Kaufman side quest, which happens right before you're looking for the carousel. There's this whole side quest, which actually adds about 30 minutes extra to the game, which is sort of neat. There's extra places to go, extra things to do, dialogue that you have with Kaufman. It's really cool. You can skip all of it. So if you skip both of those things, in the bad ending, the deity merges with Alessa, electrocutes Dahlia before attacking Harry. He defeats it. Cheryl then thanks. She says, "Thank you, Daddy, for freeing me." And overcome by grief, Harry collapses. And the next scene is that of his corpse in the wrecked car from the very beginning. He's just been dead the whole time.
Wow.
I actually love that.
I can't believe all these years I've never known that ending.
Yeah, that's such
crazy.
a cool ending.
Yeah,
it's like,
is.
you just been dead the whole time, dude. Everybody's dead.
Yeah.
The bad plus ending
That's
is
the
what they
Lost
call.
ending, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Spoilers for Lost.
So the bad plus ending you get when you save Sybil with the drug, but don't do the extra Kaufman stuff. And Harry and Sybil will flee after the deity's demise. So you get like a little extra scene where they live, but the Cheryl still dies.
Okay.
So it's just she still dies, but Sybil and Harry are alive. The good ending was with you do the Sybil stuff, or you don't have to do Sybil, but you do the Kaufman thing, and you did everything that you said. So then with the good plus ending, everything you said except Sybil is now there because you saved her as well. So there's the good ending where it's Harry alone. There is no extra scene with Sybil, and then the good plus ending is with Sybil because you saved her.
Okay.
Then the joke ending, which actually came from a suggestion box, and they were like, "What else should we do?" It's not a joke. Is extraterrestrials just come after the end and abduct Harry.
Okay, that makes more sense because I know in the sequel, in other ways, that makes sense now. Yeah, the UFO ending.
Yeah,
I didn't realize that came in the first series though, because I never saw that when I played it years and years and years ago.
It's really crazy because everybody comes together in the endings, and but you don't really get a ton of time with any of them.
No,
right? Like Kaufman is kind of part of it, like a little bit. Dahlia, you meet for a second, like. And it's kind of neat because those names like seem like familiar, but they actually picked names out of either real world characters or actors and things like that. So
yeah, I did hear some of that. I read some of that, but I was like, I wasn't sure if that was 100% true or not because I was reading on like Wikipedia and stuff, so I didn't.
Dr. Michael Kaufman is a combination of the Troma Studios producers, Michael Hers and Lloyd Kaufman.
Makes sense.
You've got Dario Argento's, I think it's his mother. Her name is Daria, but it was going to be, that was the original name for Dahlia.
Mm-hmm.
What else was there? I forget. Had something to do with Judy Garland. I can't think of it right now. But
Lisa Garland.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. That's Lisa's last name.
Yeah.
So that's a theme that they do throughout.
Because I know in like one of the early puzzles, very very early puzzles, I don't even know if it's in the school or if it's in one of the houses, but like the keys or something. There's a woodsman, a scarecrow, and a lion symbol or key that you have to get. I'm like, oh, that's where it's rousing. And later there's a Alice in Wonderland one too.
Mm-hmm.
I think later in the game where it's like the Mad Hatter, the Red Queen, and
they do.
else.
Yeah, Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland. They did stuff from Arthur Conan Doyle, The Lost World. Like they pull references from all kinds of neat shit.
Generally pulled. I know they had to pull references from Stephen King too, because
absolutely.
The Mist is right. I mean, that story, The Mist, is
and your Harry Mason is a author. Like he is a Stephen King character essentially. Basically, you're Stephen King. You're just not named Stephen King.
All right, so that's Silent Hill 1, and it was when that game came out, it was so different and so good. So let's move on to Silent Hill 2. This one was released in 2001 on the PS2. So obviously we're jumping right into the PS2 now. So we're going to get a graphical improvement. Because I will say some of the graphics of, not the cuts. The cutscenes were still great for the time. Looked wonderful. But again, playing for PS1, you look back like, oh my God. Because like some of the 3D renders, when you see Sybil and Harry, especially Sybil, like her face in some of, because it's like that very almost Nintendo 64 like GoldenEye thing where the face is like just like a polygon, like this angular, weird, very angular, and her face is like just plastered on the front. It looks so weird.
You know what's funny about the PS1 faces is I read this in PlayStation Magazine. is that the guy who did all the 3D rendering, the guy that lived in the studio for 2 years, was it Sato? Was it? No, it's another guy. Anyway, again, if it's the internet, so not a great selection for 3D modeling renders, so kind of had to do it from flat pictures. He didn't have a good head reference for white people. Essentially, I'm not joking.
It makes sense.
So that's why they look kind of weird when you get up close to him. They gave an interview and he's like, I didn't have a good reference for Americans, is what he called them. I'm just fucking. They're white, so they're white people. Yeah. So fucking he didn't have a good Irish person to sit, an Irish Catholic to sit down. You sit here while I fucking work on your face for 2 years.
Yeah.
So that's why they look so weird like that in at least this game. I don't know what the hell Rare was doing with GoldenEye.
Yeah. So we move on now to PS2. Things get better. Some background information. So upon release in 2001, it sold over 1 million copies in its first month, which is huge at that time. Work on Silent Hill 2 began in June of 1999. So pretty much as soon as Silent Hill had been completed, they'd already decided to start on the sequel, which is weird given the fact that when you look back at the background information, like how little faith the studio had in the game when they developed it, the fact that they already started that quickly on a sequel before it was even released is crazy. So its narrative was inspired by the Russian novel Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky, and some other influences. Game's artistic style include work from David Cronenberg, David Fincher, David Lynch, who we talked about earlier, Alfred Hitchcock. Cultural references in history, films, and literature can be found in the game as well. In contrast with the previous title, those narratives which concern more cult activity in number 1, Silent Hill 2 focuses directly on the psychology of its characters. Some of the more apparent themes that appear throughout the narrative include grief, guilt, punishment. Seen during the game is James' guilty consciousness manifests in forms of the enemies as the player engages with. The puzzles they must solve to proceed, as well as symbolism within the puzzles as well. The endings, Silent Hill 2 features 6 endings, which I guess I can come back to after we get through the game. We'll come back to that. And there's also then, that was released later, I believe, was a little mini, I guess you would call it now, it would probably be considered like a DLC nowadays, but there is a game called Born from a Wish, which was a side story scenario in the special editions and re-release of the game, in which the player takes control of Maria shortly before she and James meet in Silent Hill. After waking up in a town with a gun and contemplating suicide, she decides to try to find someone. She eventually encounters a local mansion where she hears a voice of its owner, Ernest Baldwin. Ernest refuses to let Maria into his room and will only talk to her through the closed door. After Maria completes tasks for him, Ernest warns her about James, whom he describes as a bad man. After Maria is allowed in, she opens the door to Ernest's room to find it empty. She leaves the mansion, and at the conclusion of the scenario, Maria contemplates suicide one more time, but ultimately resolves to find James instead, and the side story concludes with a voiceover of James encountering Maria in the park and her introducing herself to him as it happens during the events of the main story. So that's a little kind of, I guess, bonus thing that they released later as well. But,
so the neat part about that is in the original PS2 release, it's not in there.
Yeah.
Then they released the game on Xbox, and I think it's called like Shatter something.
No, Shattered Memories
that's
is
right.
like a totally different
That's
game.
the remake. It's got like a little subtitle when it comes out on Xbox. But that has that Born from a Wish scenario on there. Then they re-released the game on PS2 again, but not a special edition re-release. It's just under the Greatest Hits title. So it's like a budget. Like when you get Greatest Hits on PS2 and PS1, it was like cheaper versions of the game.
Yeah, they were like $20.
Yeah,
like
right? Because they'd already sold 1 million copies or whatever the staple was. So they're like, here it is again, re-released. And on the Greatest Hits PS2 re-release, that's where you can get this on PS2. It's not even advertised on the box, like front, like, get extra scenarios. It's just, you got it. They just gave it to you for free, which is really neat and very unheard of at the time.
Yeah.
Right? To get sort of a budget version of it with extra content.
Yeah, normally you would just get the bare bones. Here's the basic stuff.
And then in the HD release on PS3 and Xbox 360, it's there.
Okay,
it's there as well.
Anything else about the game like that you want through before we actually go through the game and kind of talk about the
No, so it's so funny because you had that, and here's literally what I wrote. There's nothing cool about the development of this. Long story short, first game made money, so second game got better budget and bigger team. I mean, it's really true, right?
Yeah.
There are more, obviously, themes and stuff that they do there, but like, they were just like, hey, cool, now we can realize the ideas we wanted with the first game that we didn't get to do because you only fucking gave us a small amount of money.
Right.
We made you an ass load. Now you're going to let us go from a team of 5 people to like 50. So then they made the game that they truly wanted to make. But there's nothing cool about, like, nobody's sleeping in the offices.
Nobody's living in the office for 2 years. So yeah, this is my notes where I said opening cool video, like little opening cinematic videos that I missed the days when games did that. So in this game, you play as James, not Harry. Totally different character. You go to Silent Hill to look for your wife in their special place because he gets a letter from his wife, Mary, saying, come meet me in our special place.
His dead wife.
Yes, I was about to say, that's the thing. Mary has been dead for 3 years when the game starts and when you get this letter from her. So early in the game, James meets this young woman named Angela in a graveyard who warns him to stay away from Silent Hill, and that we learn that she's looking for her mom. So the first character we introduce is Angela. And I do say I love that as you make your way into town, you keep hearing these like disgusting wet sounds of like something lurking in the fog around you, but it's never seen. Yeah. It's so like disturbing. Like, what the fuck is that? But nothing ever gets you. You never see it, but you hear shit lurking around you. It's so good.
How long did it take you to get out of the bathroom at the very beginning of the game? Because you start in the bathroom.
Yeah. Shit, I don't remember. Now, when we get to number 3, I'll talk about the beginning of the 3 and how I probably was interested with that one. But number 2, I do not remember. It's been so long.
Dude, struggle with it because what looks like a door that you could click on isn't. It's like a closet that you don't even get a reaction for of like, this is a closet.
Yeah.
Or anything like that. Or like, it's locked. I can't go this way. And then what the doorway is not highlighted in any way, shape, or form. There's no exit sign. I'm like, how the fuck do I get out of this roadside bathroom? If I stay here long enough, Michael Myers is going to show up and rain teeth on me. I need to leave. It pisses me off. But it is cool that once you get out, you're on the other side of the lake.
Yeah.
And you're in Silent Hill. You're just in a different part than the first game.
Yes.
It's kind of neat. You can see it off in the distance. It's very cool.
So at this point, you're walking through town, and this is where you meet the new armless men enemies. The armless guys that weren't in the first game. And the first time I saw this guy, it was so creepy to me. These guys are so creepy, the way they twitched and squirmed. And it was even creepier when they're on the ground and they're like slithering, like moving like worms. Like that shit freaked me the fuck out when I first played. Like that is fucking disturbing.
This game took the psychological horror, just turned it up. Fucking this thing goes to 11.
Yes.
Like just they fucking cranked it.
Number
man.
2, the psychological shit is through the roof in this game. So way before its time, I think. So early.
Scared the shit out of me, dude.
My dog.
Like a Swiffer over there came to life out of my periph.
So you go to this apartment building. Let's break this down by locations again. That's where you get the flashlight and you meet the legs on top of legs monster.
Oh my god, the mannequins! Yeah, it's the bottom half of a body sewn to the bottom half of a body, but they're like on top of each other. It's like belly to belly sort of thing.
It's so creepy and disturbing.
It gets worse later.
Oh, it gets so much worse. But my first one here is the fucking monster design in this game is so good. Like whoever designed these things is seriously has some emotional issues, I think, or some fucked upness because their design is so good for the different creatures you encounter in this game. Now, in the first game, there was very few. There's maybe a hand, like maybe 5 total. You had like the dog, you had the flying bat thing, you had the
pterodactyl.
It's
called like the air screamer too. They had terrible names in the first game.
Terrible names. But you had like the baby with the knife and the nurses, and really that's about it.
You get the doctor, which looks just like the nurse.
Just
takes a little bit longer to kill.
Yeah. And then you had like I think it was in this and first one near the end you got like the giant like gorilla dog thing that kind of like leap
they're
around.
Like stalkers or something like that. Like I said, they had terrible fucking names.
But that's basically it. So basically 4, maybe 5 different enemies throughout the entire game.
Yeah.
This one they get a lot more variety, and they're so much creepier looking.
There is a
so
scene
much creepier
with these mannequin legs and pyramid head later. Do you have it?
I got
it. I don't want to get to it until we get to it.
I got it.
But
I surely got it. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
So we get to the apartment building. Yeah. So And this is where you meet the bratty little girl here, who I didn't get her name for a long. It's Lauren, or something like that. Which for a long time you don't get her name. She's just this bratty little girl, and of course this is where we meet Pyramid Head, like fucking a pair of leg monsters. Like,
yeah, like, you're hiding in a closet, and he like has his way with the fucking legs. Like what? Like sexualization is huge in this game because James's wife, as they died, like it was like a sexless marriage sort of thing because she was sick all the time. Yeah. So like the way you see the sexy nurses later, that's James's visualization of them in his head. The fucking leg thing, the whole Pyramid Head sex thing, which I think you've already been introduced to Pyramid Head at this point in time, right? Or is this the first time?
This is the first time you get Pyramid Head, I believe.
No, it's the first time in the game, but this is just the first point.
Pyramid is not in the first game.
No, that's what I mean. So you're this
is the first time you're introduced to Pyramid Head.
No. I know this is the first game he's in. I mean, like when he shows up and fucks the legs. Have you already seen him yet in the game? Or is
no,
this
that's what I'm saying. I think
this is the first. That's what I thought. That's the first time
you ever experienced them.
So like you're like, look at that fucking. I'm gonna have to fight that later. And is he gonna try to rape me? Like what? Like. Now I got a whole new host of problems I got to worry about. I just want to fucking survive this fucking tetanus-ridden world. And I don't want to get fucking raped by Giant Sword Man.
So, yeah. And then after that, you meet Fat Eddie for the first time vomiting into a toilet, swearing he didn't kill a guy in this apartment that you found. You find a dead guy in.
So, when the development, because there's just like not a lot there, he was actually named after Eddie Murphy, and he was originally supposed to be the funny man.
I heard that. Again, I read that on Wikipedia. I'm like, Eddie Murphy? I'm like, is this real? Like, I'm not going to write that down because I can't imagine. Because there is nothing about Eddie in this game that even closely resembled Eddie Murphy. Like, I think
there's a couple of really good, like, Konami-produced, documentary sort of, how this was made, sort of, kind of stuff behind the scenes, I guess, whatever. Okay. That information comes from. So it is true.
That is true.
But because they were like, here's the original version, and he wasn't a black guy, but like he was supposed to be very funny, sort of a comedic relief. To alleviate some of the tension because this.
Well, they dropped that because he is not funny.
No, and this game is tense.
There is no comedic relief in this game whatsoever.
No, God, no. This game is fucking nail-bitingly tense.
Yeah, it is. You have your second meeting with Angela where you learn that she's not quite right in the head and she's carrying around a bloody knife. She ends up giving it to you. So it's kind of weird.
She
like, here, take this bloody knife I have.
It's just real casual about it, too. Here you go.
You go outside the apartment. You have your second encounter with the bratty girl. And this is where you first meet the sultry Maria for the first time. At this time, it was like, yeah, you want to bang Maria. Like nobody will. If anybody tells you they didn't want to bang Maria, they're lying. Because Maria's like, fuck you for like 2001 game. Grab like, yeah, she's a smoke show.
That's what I was trying to Google before we got to. And she's like, man, I want to fucking get a picture of Maria.
Yeah, she was hot, and the way she talked. But she looks like Mary's twin. That's the whole thing. She looks identical to your dead wife. At this point, Maria joins you for a while. She follows you around as you walk around until you reach a bowling alley. And apparently she fucking hates bowling because she refuses to go inside with you. She's like, I'm gonna wait out here. And I'm like, damn, she really must hate bowling. She would rather just hang outside in the monster-filled fog than go inside a bowling alley with you. So in the bowling alley, you meet Fat Eddie and the bratty girl eating pizza. And I'm like, where'd they get that pizza from? Like, of all the things to say, like, where'd the pizza come from? That's fresh food.
Check it for keys.
Exactly. One thing we learned in Silent Hill, always check your food for hidden keys.
Yeah, no shit. Oh my God, it's bitten this fucking awesome pepperoni, fucking giant key in it.
Laura runs off. You go after her back outside. Maria joins back with you, and this leads you to the hospital. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, because this is not the same hospital from the first game, which I think is weird and kind of a dumb mistake. Because the name on the map, if I remember, the first hospital was like something really weird, something with an A, and it's really long, like I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. It's a weird name which starts with an A. And then here, it's Brookhaven or something like that, the hospital. So it's two different hospitals, which I don't know why they would, like, change that. Like, that's an oversight or something.
I don't think it's the hospital from the first one, because you're in a different part of Silent Hill.
So, okay, and that could be, but I was like...
I mean, I live in a town that has two hospitals.
We do, yes, but that was my next point. It was like, if it's a different hospital... It's just weird that this is a small town that would have two hospitals. like a tiny little town. The fact that you even have one hospital is probably pretty stretch of a word. Like,
very true.
So I just like it was weird that there'd be two different hospitals here. But anyway, this is where we get introduced to the classic and the famous.
That's what you're worried about? There's fucking leg monsters just made of legs. Yeah. But you're like, fucking, there's just too many hospitals.
Yeah, something's off here.
In this town.
Yep, something about that's fishy. But here's where we meet the classic, and everybody knows the famous, creepy, fucked up nurses. They're different. Like I said, they're not the ones from the first. These are the ones that the hot, the kind of sexy hot.
You see them at like Comic-Cons and stuff. You're like,
hot.
I have the weirdest boner now.
I know. It's like, what's wrong with me?
Because you're moving weird, but you're like gyrating at the same time, and there's all your fun parts are hanging out.
Like a short mini skirt, and your tits are hanging out. Like, yeah. Fun fact: when we were at the second contamination. Yep. The one where I was days after having like my brain surgery, I was actually asked to be one of the judges of the costume contest. I'm like,
I thought you were gonna say somebody asked me to be the sexy nurse.
No, I was like, are you really me? I can barely even speak and function, but you want me to? I'm like, all right. So and then I get there, there's like 2 or 3 other people that are gonna judge with me, and none of them wanted to like take the lead and like talk on the mic and introduce things. I'm like dead. I'm basically and it's like, are you really? No one was gonna do this. Like, fine. So I had to do this, take lead as the lead judge for this thing. But point is, one of the girls there was dressed up as sexy nurse from Silent Hill, and she was my pick to win. And we gave her the the first place. The other good one was the Babadook guy, a really good costume. I think he was a little pissed he didn't win, but like, it's good, but
sorry, dude, you're not a hot girl.
I'm like, Silent Hill nurse. That's really good. And she had the whole face, like messed up face thing. You're just
and tits.
You're just like in shoulder pads and a big hat. Like there was a barf there though from Space Balls though. Somebody's dressed up as barf too. Anyway, so that was just a fun little callback there. So at this point, in the hospital full of killer nurse monsters, you leave Maria alone in a room to take a nap. Which again is so odd. Like, I'm tired, I'm gonna take a nap. You know,
there's so much has happened to James at this time, but he's like, why don't you just, you know what? It's probably safe for you to sleep here. You just fucking take your nap.
So you go around the hospital some more, and on the roof, Pyramid Head shows up and hits you through a chain link fence off the roof. Just hits you with the sword. You go flying off the roof, and you wake up in what seems like a psych ward of the hospital, because the hallway is lined with padded white rooms covered in blood. You find Laura in a teddy bear room, because teddy bears are never creepy. And she tells James how she knows Mary, then locks you in a room with a pair of fucking scary ass flesh creatures and metal frames floating around the ceiling trying to attack you. Again, the creature design here goes over the top and weird. It's like, I don't know how I begin to describe these things. They're like these metal frames, but they're like there are boxes or something like that, and they're flying around. It's fucking.
They remind me of like cages with arms and legs, kind of.
Yeah, but they're not full cages. It's just like the frame of a cage.
Right.
There's no enclosure part. It's just the frames, and there's like creatures in it, like lashing out at you. It's fucking weird.
I don't know how to. Yeah, there's no good way to describe it. You just had to look at it.
Yeah, you do exactly. Again, I said this fucking great original monster design. Maria shows back up, yelling at you for leaving her alone, even though the bitch was like, "I'm tired. I'm going to take a nap here."
Well, you're supposed to sit there and watch her. I mean, I guess that's what Lisa did in the first one. She just watched Harry nap.
Yeah, sure.
So I guess maybe Maria was like, "Look, my friend Lisa does it to me all the time, so you can just watch me fucking sleep." Harry,
there's
James, whatever the fucking name is.
There's a scene in the elevator where this broken radio turns on and you hear a game show. It's so weird. That says James is the contestant and it asks you 3 trivia questions, which you have to answer, and then sends you to a storeroom to collect your prize. And that your answer, if you better be sure your answers are right, because if you're not, there's a big punishment for you. And I'm like, that's proper fucking creepy. When you hear like your own name on a game show and it's like telling you trivia questions about the world you live in or this world you're now.
Do you know what happens when you get them wrong?
I've never seen what happened when you get them wrong. So what does happen when you get them wrong?
I don't know. Is that when you had it?
I don't.
I got them right every time. I get it.
Yeah, I've never seen it wrong.
They're kind of obvious.
Yeah, they are pretty obvious. Yeah. Pyramid Head chases you.
Probably drops the elevator or something.
Maybe, but you're not in the elevator. I don't know. Probably something stabs you or something. Pyramid Head shows up, chases you and Maria down a narrow, winding hallway that leads to another elevator. James makes it to the elevator, but Maria gets killed by Pyramid Head as the doors close, and it's a really good intense moment because you see him chasing you down this narrow, winding hallway, and he's like right behind, like fuck, and you get to the elevator, doors close, she's reaching her arms, like help me, and she stabs her, and the doors close on her as she dies.
James does not help her.
He does not.
Not even a little bit.
No, but it's proper. It's a great intense moment.
See, everyone, you don't take naps in Silent Hill.
Now there's these guys, you see them again later, but this is the first time you see them. There's this part where you're running down the metal grate in the other world, the metal like chain link fence flooring, and underneath you are these giant like large flesh monsters that are like swinging on the grate like monkeys underneath, and their arms are like clubs, and there's like swinging as you like run over them. It's a great fucking visual. It's scary as hell at the time. Again, just another one of these, I loved it. I
forgot about those when I replayed it, and like got to that point, scared the shit out of me. Because I remember, we forgot them earlier, but like the little weird praying mantis things that you see in the sewer.
Yeah, in the sewers,
There's
yeah.
like bugs.
Like the
but
bug
like,
things.
when you get down there, I was expecting something like that, and I was like, oh, I think there's something down here. And then these fucking club-armed things come at me.
And they're underneath, they're swinging under you. Like,
freak the fuck out.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, God, forgot about this.
So then you have this endless hallway that leads you to some building. Like, this hallway you just run down and run and run and run. It's like a mind trip. It's like, how long can I run down this hallway? But eventually you do get to a door. It takes you to the building.
That is some Konami shit right there. Do the same thing in Metal Gear Solid 3. You're running down a river. You're like, this is fucking good. I got like literally like 25 minutes.
Then you blindly jump down a dark hole. Like, there's a giant hole in front of you. You can't see down. He's like, what should I do? Well, I guess I'll jump down the hole.
Well, James is like, I'm not going back down 15-mile hallway here. Yeah. So either I die or I don't. Either way, I'm going down this
I'm going down the hole. And then you find a hidden door behind a brick wall that leads to the sewer-like area. And then you have to take another leap of faith by jumping down another seemingly bottomless hole. You do this like 3 times in this game. Just blindly jump down holes.
By the 3rd time, James is going, wee!
We're at the bottom of this hole. You find Eddie with a gun talking about killing a guy for making fun of him and making fun of him with his eyes. And he says, "Oh nope, I'm just joking, man," and he leaves. What? You jump down a black bottomless hole and find this guy with a gun who says, "I killed this guy for looking at me wrong." Kidding, I'm out. What?
Dude, David Lynch wrote these guys a letter. Was like, dude, this shit don't even make sense to me.
So you end up in the prison is the next location. You solve the square tablet puzzle. Hear a man scream somewhere in the distance, which is, again, just a great mind fuck. Like, oh shit, what did I just do to this guy? You jump down yet another black hole, and then another one. So you get 2 back to back, and then a third. So you get 3 in a row of just black holes. You're just jumping down.
That's 6 if you're counting at home.
Yeah. And then you ride what seems like a never-ending elevator down even further. So how far down in the earth you've gone at this point is beyond me. Then you find Maria alive in a cell with no memory of being killed by Pyramid Head whatsoever. She gets real flirty and seductive. She's like, I want you in here, but I want to touch you, but I can't because these bars are in our way. It's like she gets real kind of slutty. It's kind of hot. But she's stuck in his cell, so she sends James off to find a way to get her out so she can bang him, basically. Now he's like on a...
She's like, I need a key. There's a jelly bean room down the door. Just,
if anybody's sheet full of jelly beans, just
fucking check all the jelly beans.
Again, shit's just getting weirder. You go down one hallway and you hear a girl shout out, "Daddy, please don't," which that's fucking frightening as hell.
Oh, the daddy monster.
Daddy, please don't. When you go inside, you find Angela curled up next to this disgusting, pulsing blob monster that looks like it swallowed a table in a room that looks like it's made from flesh. It's like a flesh room. You have to fight this thing. After killing it, Angela gets up, kicks the shit out of it, then drops a TV on it, and accuses you of only being nice to her so you can fuck her, and she has a mental breakdown and leaves. That's basically the epitome of that scene. That's what happens. That's weird. Mm-hmm. Then you get a room with hanging corpses and a puzzle. It's a puzzle of there's like 6 people hanging from a noose in this one room. And then you have to go into another room where you pull down a noose, like you're going to hang yourself. But when you go back into the other room, the body of the new shoe pulled down is now gone. It's like raised up into the ceiling, and like there's like a key or something in its place. I forget. But again, just kind of a cool puzzle. Like, that was one that really stuck out. I like that one.
When you walk into that room and they're all just fucking hanging there.
Yeah.
And if you stand still, they ever so slightly just move a little bit. And it's just like, that's so good.
It's so good. Later, you find Maria dead on a bed again. She's like bloody. There's blood on the mattress.
That bitch has got to stop napping.
She's just dead on a bed. Which just leads you to finding a small graveyard that has freshly dug up graves with tombstones that all have the character names on them. There's one for Eddie, there's one for Angela, and there's one for James. So what do? You jump down into your own grave, and it takes it to a staircase, going down even further. Because of course,
the architect of Silent Hill is obviously Ivo Shandor.
Or MC Escher or something. So you go in a door that leads to a large freezer room where Eddie is in the middle. He's in the middle of it, surrounded by dead bodies. Eddie has snapped at this point. He's ranting about killing everyone and anyone who makes fun of him. James is like, dude, have you gone crazy? Which you should have said that, because that Eddie turns on him and starts shooting at James. Like, fuck you. You think I'm crazy? And so you fight off Eddie, and Eddie runs away. He leaves. You're following through another giant freezer and hanging chunks of meat or deformed bodies or animals. I'm not really sure what they're supposed to be, but just, somehow a Rocky movie. So you get the final shootout with Eddie. You kill him. James gets upset over having killed a human being for the first time, because everything else you killed at this point is just a weird fucking monster. And then he questions if Mary really did die 3 years ago at all. You exit the freezer and find yourself back outside in Silent Hill on a dock. Because again, Silent Hill architecture and logic.
Makes no sense. But I mean, it really doesn't need to.
It doesn't need to. That's the great thing about it.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be practical. You have to keep going.
Yeah.
And that's the fun part. It's very linear, but it's very fun because you don't even know where you're going to end up next. And instead of it just being like crazy for crazy's sake, it has a theme and a reason behind it, and you get it all unfolds later. But
it's great. Because of this, it really plays on the psychological horror part of it. Because
we're laughing about it because we can, but we're not making fun of it.
No, it's really good.
Yeah.
So you take a rowboat across the fog-covered lake to the resort hotel, which seems to take forever. Again, it's like the answer. You just roll and row, and it feels like you're not going anywhere, making any progress. But you finally see like this little light behind you. You keep rolling to it, and again, it takes forever. But you finally reach the other side, and you're finally at the Lakeview Hotel, which is the special place that Mary was talking about.
Of all the fucking most ridiculous things in this game, they're like, let's add a little element of realism. Let's take how long it would practically get across the fucking lake in a rowboat and make that really a mechanic. It's like, seriously?
I
got a guy with a fucking giant pyramid on his head fucking a pair of legs. And only legs, but you're like, it's really going to take him probably a half hour to fucking row across this thing. So let's just go ahead and do that.
So at the hotel, you find Laura in the restaurant. James and Laura talk about Mary. We learn that Laura and Mary had the same nurse, that they were in a hospital together for something, and they had the same nurse. Laura gives James a letter from Mary, which suggests that if Laura is reading this letter, then Mary is dead. The letter also tells us that Laura hated James because she thought that James wasn't nice to Mary, but Mary is like, hey, give him a chance. Underneath it all, he's really sweet. Mary tells Laura that she loves her like her own daughter and that she was hoping to adopt Laura someday so that we get more connection, the more story there. Laura mentions a second letter but realizes that she dropped it somewhere, so she has to run off to look for it. And again, it makes me like, how the fuck does this little kid get around this town with all these monsters? And how did she roll her ass across the lake? Like, I love how these characters just show up in all these places.
Just one boat.
Yeah.
And James has it.
Yeah. The elevator won't work unless you place all your stuff, everything you own in your inventory in a box, making you forge
on the
ahead.
left. Everything you own is in a box.
So it makes you go forward with nothing, and that was so scary in this game because like all these monsters, like I have nothing. Like you don't have a knife, you don't have a 2x4, nothing in your inventory.
Because you're picking up everything. And hell, in the first game, you used to having shit that you never even used.
Yeah, that's true. And I want to say, didn't they do this in Silent Hill and Code Veronica at one point? Wasn't there something like the metal detector where you had to drop all your guns in the box and go forward? But still, like, in this situation, like, man, I was like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't
No,
want to go forward without my stuff.
You're pregnant at the end of the game, and you know that something you gotta have to fucking take something down.
Something's coming
at the end,
Yeah.
right after this,
and it's making you get rid of all your stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like this one bit. So anyway, the videotape you watch in the room where James and Mary stayed. You get the room that they stayed in on like a trip or something. It reveals the big twist of this game, and that James, the character you're playing this whole time, the whole time you're like, oh, I gotta find my wife. I love my wife. You find out that James actually killed his wife by smothering her with a pillow while she slept. And at this point, this was such a huge mindfuck twist for its time. It blew my mind. Like, it's such a crazy mindfucking twist at this time in 2001. It was insane. Like, and then you hear Mary's voice calling to you through the static on the TV. But my God, how'd you react to that when you first play this game and you're like, holy shit, wait, I killed my wife? I did it? Like, talk about psychological horror again, but like, what were your reactions to that?
So, when we get to this point, right, it's all you're looking for is your wife. Like I said, just looking for her. I just thought that no joke, thought that it was another, like, just mindfuck Silent Hill game, right? I just thought it was a mind game. I didn't think that it actually happened. I just thought they were trying to convince me of it. But they're not. And when I beat the game, I'm like, oh. Then I actually got, and this is a real thing. You can look this up. This has been documented every time, like, especially with these first two games, that certain people will suffer from temporary depression from playing these things. Like, I remember the kid who let me borrow the first one's like, dude, you're going to be super fucking sad when you beat this. And I was 15 at the time. I was like, what? No, I'm not. And like, I got that, I was like, that was fucking sad. And then when you do this, which just only came out just 2 years later, I mean, it really is fucking depressing. So I got to the end and was like, bummer. That wasn't a mind fuck. That was a real thing. James really did that. It really bothered me. It fucked me up, dude.
Yeah.
Like it's I'm struggling a little bit with that. I'm kind of stumbling because it's just really hard to get past.
Yeah, it's so hard because, like, now
what a great twist.
It's a wonderful twist. To me, it's like the first. Like, no, I've never played. I can't say I'm the biggest game. I've played a lot of games, but I didn't play a lot of various systems. So there's a lot of things I did.
Shit ton of games. I've never experienced anything like this.
So, but that's what I'm saying. Like in 2001 or never. I don't remember ever playing a game because in every game I play up to then, you're the good guy. You're the hero. You're the one on the right. You're going to save the day. Never did I play a game where the whole time you're playing this guy. You say, yeah, he's just sad upset. He's looking for his wife. He loves because he loves his wife so much. And then you find out that no, you're a fucking murderer. You murdered your wife. You're a bad guy. The whole time, like, just boom. Like, just mind explode. It was so
that's why you're seeing all these
different
sexualized images of things. That's why you never stop Maria from coming on to you. You're never like, oh, no, my wife, I'm married.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh, I guess I'll go find the key, and then you come back, she's gone. It's like, oh, okay, well then don't worry about it then.
Yeah, it was such a monumental moment, I think, for me for gaming, but just the psychology of it all, just the mess with you, like such good writing, I think, at that point. It was so good.
When you get outside of it, when you finish it and you get some perspective, you're like, it clicks.
Yeah.
Everything leading up to this point makes sense of what you've been seeing and experiencing.
100%.
It's
like
the
whole thing, like you can't see the forest through the trees. Here's a little piece here, a little piece here, but when it's like pointism. If you look too close, all you see is the little dots. But you stand back, the whole point, you see the whole picture.
This is the whole crime and punishment aspect of it, right? He's not being punished by a court of law for his crime. He's being punished
by himself
for his guilt. His guilt is what's causing all of this in the first place.
Exactly. So now we get the final scene with Angela on a burning staircase. At this point, she's lost it and she thinks James is her mom. She does snap out of it, come to at one point. She thanks James for saving her, but wishes he hadn't. She thinks she deserved what happened to her so far. She asks James for the knife back, but you can refuse. You don't give it to her. So Angela pretty much just then decides to kill herself and just walks up the burning staircase deeper into the fire, and you never see her again. Again, it's like, God damn the emotions. Like, just the psychological trauma here of, like, just... because basically it's led to believe that Angela was, I guess, sexually abused by her dad. And it led her to just fucked her up.
That's why you see the daddy monster.
Yes, and she's like, Daddy, please don't, or Daddy, stop. And when you hear that, and so she's just been suicidal this whole time, and you see the bloody knife, and actually, like, was she trying to kill herself, or did she kill her dad? And then she's like, all right, well, I'm done. I'm just gonna go. She kills herself, like walking up into the fire, and you never see her again. It's just, again, an intense what the fuck moment. After that, you find Maria hanging upside down in a cage, flanked by not one but two pyramid heads. And like, what? Okay, so first of all, you see pyramid this whole time, there's only been one. You're like, holy shit, I don't want to mess with that guy. But now there's two of them.
Yeah, because you get an encounter with him, which is essentially a boss fight. But you can shoot him as many times as you want. You don't have to shoot him at all. It doesn't matter because it's not really a boss fight.
Right? Yeah.
You just have to avoid him until he
goes downstairs and like
the siren goes off,
like a flooded stairwell. And he sinks underneath the water and he's gone.
Yeah, like the siren just like calls him away and he goes to another part of it.
Right.
But now there's two of these dudes.
Yeah. Now there's two. So they kill Maria by running her through with their giant fucking weapons. One has a spear, I think, or they have spears now instead of swords. But they kill Maria.
Spearhead.
Spear. This is like the third time she's died in this game now.
This is a cool realization of James after this.
Oh, it's so good. So James basically realizes that the pyramid heads are his own creations designed to punish himself for being weak. This leads to the boss fights.
All the monsters are creations of his psyche.
It's just his psyche doing all this.
It's
so
cool.
good.
It's good.
The boss fight with the pyramid head. So basically, which happens.
They commit suicide.
Yeah, they basically you shoot them enough, you avoid them, you shoot, and they basically you survive long enough to the point where they
carry themselves.
Yeah, they kill themselves by impaling their giant heads on their own spears, and they prop up their dead bodies. It's a cool visual, just like up through the bottom of the jaw through the chin, and then they just kind of the spears prop their bodies up and they just die. It's fucking creepy and cool.
There's your boss fight.
Or sub boss fight 1. Yeah. So after the fight, you go down a long hallway while hearing memories of James and Mary talking. Like, you just whole playback in your head. Now, this is kind of a key moment that I'll come back to later, depending on how you handle this hallway in the game. But you hear all this conversation between him and all his voiceover, and it's kind of heartbreaking listening to Mary struggle with the fact that she's dying, and she's going through this range of emotions from anger, and then she to fear and depression. Like she runs the gauntlet. It's really well written. It's really sad and depressing at the same time, but it's needed. Like it's important and it's good.
You wouldn't think it could get worse than a videotape of you euthanizing your own wife.
Yeah.
But it does.
It does. So up on the rooftop, you find Mary waiting for you. She turns into like this an upside down cage monster that flies around trying to kill you with a black tentacle that tries to strangle you, or by shooting out a swarm of demon bats that like try to swarm you, which is both those are very symbolic or reminiscent of James killing her, because either way she's being swarmed and you're being smothered by these bats, like you smothered her with the pillow, or she's strangling you, cutting off your air supply like you did to her as well. So again, I think that's great, like, way to tie it all together in the boss attacks. After you win, you get a cutscene between James. This is one ending, so keep this in mind. This ending, you cutscene between James sitting at Mary's bedside while Mary lays in bed. He asks Mary to forgive him, says that she told him she wants to die. James says that's why he did it, to end her suffering, but it wasn't the whole truth. There was a part of him that hated her for taking away his life. Mary says, "You killed me and you're suffering for it. Enough, James." And she hands him a letter. She goes into a coughing fit and dies. James picks her up, carries her body off screen, fade to black. Now you get more voiceover of James talking to himself about how he understands why he came to Silent Hill, as the sounds of a car starting are heard. You hear the car speed up and drive off as James says, "Now we can be together." And then it fades in on an underwater shot as the context of Mary's letters scroll up, and we hear her reading the letter she wrote to him, and it's fucking sad. It is so sad. You roll the credits, but that's one of the possible endings where James commits suicide at the end of the game by driving the car into the lake and killing himself. So Did you get that, Andy? Did you got that one when you played through? Ever get that one yourself?
So I've got the I never got the leave ending. I've got the in the water ending.
Okay, leave. Yeah, that's the next one I have written down.
And then I have the Maria ending.
Yeah. So the other endings they're that you can get on one playthrough. You have this one, the suicide. You have leave, and then you have Maria. So in the leave ending, 2
are only canonical, and the other 3 are only actually available on replays.
Yes. Yeah. We'll cover all that. So the leave ending, the scene with James sitting at Mary's bedside happens, but the dialogue is different. In this one, she hands him a letter and tells him to go on with his life, saying, I want you to live your life. I want you to be happy. James does not carry her body out of the room, and when Mary reads the letter in VO, instead of the underwater background, you get a foggy cemetery. Then, when Mary finishes the letter, we see Laura walk into view, followed by James, and the 2 of them walk off through the cemetery in the fog. That's the scene that they just left Silent Hill together, and they went on with their lives. The Maria ending, so instead of finding Mary looking out on the rooftop, looking out away from you, when you arrive on the rooftop, she's sitting on a bed waiting for James. They talk about James killing her and the reasons behind it. This time, Mary gets mad at James, saying, "Do you think I could ever forgive you for what you did?" Then she changes into her final form, boss monster. After the fight, it cuts to James leaning up against the railing, looking out onto the fog next to a hot dog cart, which is the same spot where you first meet Maria at the beginning of the game. Maria walks up asking if he killed Mary again. He says it wasn't Mary. Mary is gone. James tells Maria that he wants her with him, next to him. Like he wants to be with her. She asks him if she's sure. James says yes. Come on, let's get out of here. Maria hands him Mary's letter. This time, when the letter gets read, the background is the overlooked parking lot at the park area where the game starts. You see like the little bathroom, the off to the side, and his car's parked there. When the letter finishes, we see James and Maria walk up a staircase and over to his car. About halfway to the car, Maria stops and starts coughing.
Yeah, this is cool.
James says, "You better do something about that cough." Roll credits. And indicating that
suggesting that
Maria is not going to, it's the whole process is going to start again and be the same thing. Then we get the other endings. So these, I had some notes on these. These you can only get, you have to complete the game once, at least once, and then start a new game after that. So in Rebirth, in this ending, after the Mary boss fight, it cuts to James back in the rowboat, rowing across the lake, and I think Mary's body is in the boat with him. This time, there is no Mary letter voiceover. Instead, it's a James voiceover talking about how he can't go on without Mary, and that there's a power in Silent Hill, a power of the old gods, power that can defy death itself. James rolls out to what looks like some kind of island with a building on it. It fades to black, roll credits. So in this ending, basically, we're assuming that James is looking for a way to bring Mary back to life.
Yeah, resurrect her.
Resurrect her.
Stuff he's seen around the levels.
Yes.
Then my 2 favorite endings.
Yes. Then there are the 2 joke endings. One, you find out, this is Cincinnati's favorite ending. You find out that a Shiba Inu dog has been controlling everything and is behind all of this, kind of like a Wizard of Oz man behind the curtain thing.
The dog just controlling the events of the entire game.
Yeah. When the credits roll, you get some comic, almost circus-sounding music accompanied by dogs barking as the credits roll. And James, sees, you were behind us the whole time? And dog's like, woof! And he just, falls to his knees. He's, in disbelief and, crying or something like that. And second is the James gets abducted by aliens led by Harry Mason from the first game.
Yeah, he's helping the aliens, dude. That's so fun.
And it's done in a black and white silent movie style. So Harry shows up with a fleet of UFOs. He asks James if he's seen his daughter, a young girl with short black hair. James asks Harry, "Have you seen my wife Mary?" Which is kind of funny. Then, while James is distracted by Harry, he gets blasted by an alien ray gun. Harry gives the alien a thumbs up, and the alien Harry drag James away into a UFO, and the fleet flies away. the credits roll, and they too are like a black and white with old like 40s like sci-fi music playing over them as it ends.
Dude, it's so funny. I love the alien endings in these games. They're so just crack me up, man. They're
weird.
well written.
See, that makes sense now because I didn't know about the alien ending in the first game, but so why Harry shows up and it makes sense now. It's so good. That's really good. So that's Silent Hill 2, the game, and again, just so good. Very different than the first game. The first game is definitely more. I mean, they're scary in the same but different ways. First one was definitely more, I think, physical horror and some jump scares and just different and suspenseful. Second one had that too because you still had the fog, you still had the what you can't see what's lurking out there. But once it added that psychological aspect to it and really started messing with your head and the reality, like where you're at, what's going on, it just worked on a whole different level. That made, I think, in a lot of people's mind, to say 2 still kind of stands out as kind of like the best of the series, I think, for a lot of people.
This is the game that everybody sucks its dick off for the franchise. They're like, this is the best one. This, again, another PS2 greatest hits. It was released on Xbox when they did the HD remakes for 360 and PS3. They didn't include 1. They only included 2 and 3. And you hear this all the time. This is one of the greatest horror video games. I do like 2. I love the rotting flesh that they were able to utilize with the new graphics. Everything had rotting flesh on it, which was really cool. It's so much more Lynch than the first one ever was, and there's so much more such a highlight on psychological horror than there is jump scares and things like that. But 2 is not my preferred one, actually. I like 1 and 3 equally. But this one didn't do so. The first one did gangbusters in Japan, like out the gate, and then was a little slow here, but then it took off. This is the opposite. Over here, 2 was very slow to sell in Japan, and they were even worried about even releasing it here because of that. They did, and then it did gangbusters here much faster because everyone was anticipating it. And then from that point forward, Silent Hill 3, there's almost a shift with Silent Hill 3 on that. It was very big Western popular IP, just not so much in Japan. Not saying that it wasn't popular or but it just wasn't as big over there as it was here.
So that that said, that pretty much brings us to Silent Hill 3. So I mean, you talk about the music of these games. The music is so good in these games. Like the Silent Hill theme music, which you hear in the intro, is really good. This music from Silent Hill 3 is classic. I think it just sets the mood. Like, I hear this music, I just like Silent Hill.
Always reminds me of U2.
Really?
It's a New Year's Day, or whatever Bono says.
There you go. There's the lyrics. I forget a name. It's like Akira or Akari Tawa. I forget the
It's
music.
good. It's good. It's very good music. All of them have it.
All the music in the games are great. So good. But let's fade that out. So Silent Hill 3, this one was released in 2003, so just 2 years after number 2. It's the first direct sequel in this series so far, following the events of Silent Hill 1. Now here's this weird, like you probably heard this because you do a lot of research, but I did not know anything about this until I started looking into this more. But Silent Hill 3 was originally planned to be a rail shooter as a result of the initially slow sales of Silent Hill 2 in Japan, which you just talked about. Silent Hill 3 was developed almost simultaneously alongside Silent Hill 4 The Room. Silent Hill 3 sold more than 300,000 copies by November of 2003 and was critically successful, garnering praise for its presentation, including the elements, the graphics, and audio, as well as the overall horror elements and themes that are continued from the past installments. There were also minor criticisms of the game's short length and the gameplay mechanics. Silent Hill 3 is originally, like I said, planned as a rail shooter, not a direct sequel to the first Silent Hill game, as a result of the initially slow sales and fan criticism of Silent Hill 2 in Japan, which you talked about since St. Jeff just mentioned. According to Masahiro Ito, this decision wasted considerable development time and part of the game's budget for Silent Hill 3, Eventually, the plan was discarded, although the concept of Silent Hill rail shooter was later explored in Silent Hill the Arcade in 2007, which I've never seen nor played, or I don't know if it was even released in America.
So that's why 2 and 3, there isn't that grand jump that you got from 1 to 2, and that's why 3 is significantly shorter. They wasted, as you said, considerable amount of the budget on the rail shooter thing, and then they were also Konami's also developed. So Konami, it was like a studio inside of Konami that they like acquired that was developing a game called Room 304, and then Konami's like, again, what they were trying to avoid, the team Silent was trying to avoid with the first game was some fucking suit was like, that would make a great Silent Hill game. So guess what? Now it's a Silent Hill game. Call it Silent Hill: The Room, and that's why Silent Hill 4: The Room is like that, which it actually. 1 doesn't even take place in Silent Hill at all, and 2 is just completely different from everything else because it's actually not a Silent Hill game. Don't get me wrong; they did some really good writing with that, which I know we're not talking about that game, but that's kind of why
we'll talk very briefly about 4 and up after we get through 3, just to touch on them.
But that's why you didn't have enough money in 3 to make it as grand as it could have been and bigger than even 2 was.
Yeah, it is definitely noticeable, especially in the length of 3, because like 2 feels like it's probably like the longest and the most, intricate. Like definitely, and then 3 seems like it's still a good game in my opinion. It's still there, but it's definitely shorter.
Following a guide on the first one, you can finish it in 6-7 hours. 10 if you're not, right?
Yeah.
2, it's a good 16-hour game.
Probably, yeah.
Right? And that's compared to, like, people are like, fucking 40 hours, 50 hours. Yeah, this is back then.
Back then.
And I'm saying 16 hours with a guide. That's a lot of content.
It is.
3, you're back down to 10.
Because I remember, like Resident Evil games, like, number 1 and 2, like, you were like, racing the clock if you could, beat it in under 8 hours and stuff like that. So, like, it was... Games were a lot different back then. It was before the big spawning, So
this one is back to the length of almost the first one.
Yeah. So the reception for Silent Hill 3 received positive reviews. The PC version didn't fare as well, with some reviewers drawing unfavorable comparisons to other combat-based games found on the PC platform, while others highlight some technical issues such as poor gamepad controller support and blah 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 on the PC.
And this is where it starts to make more of a push towards action.
Yeah.
And it doesn't stop.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Like, the same thing happened with Resident Evil to me, but at least this one got through 2 games before it went kind of more actiony. But positive reactions were given to the general horror and atmosphere of the game, including truly horrifying sections. It packs some genuine scares, and the feeling of eeriness and doom is almost overwhelming. So are some of the quotes. The story told as part of the atmosphere is also received positively, making for a satisfying, coherent sequel, although its status as such meant it may be a little tough for people who haven't played the first game to understand, to make sense with, despite the laudable effort to help people catch up. In addition, the graphics, audio, and production values were all credited with adding positively to the atmosphere because, well, again, it's years later, graphics are better, sounds better. The negative criticism for this game largely stemmed from the lack of any innovations in the gameplay. The game doesn't do, quote-unquote, doesn't do anything major that the series hasn't already done before, does little in terms of innovation, and doesn't offer much beyond other titles in the series. Also criticized was the game's camera and control system, which, despite having been improved from previous games, was described as awkward, disorienting, and motion sickness inducing. Some criticism stemmed from the length of the game, as it can be easily beaten in a handful of hours, which we just talked about. Other criticism include the less compelling story compared to the first 2 entries. Again, I think a lot of that makes sense now, because when you hear about the reduced budget, they just didn't have time to really flesh it all out and do all that. So they kind of like, well, we have to kind of cram this in now and rush it out. So yeah, it does make sense that why those criticisms may be valid, but they're valid for a reason. It's not like they weren't thinking or didn't want to do it. They just probably limited and didn't have the option to.
It's hard. First one, great game, small budget, but they did everything they could because nobody was watching them.
And there was no expectations for that. It was basically a
now you're at number 3, and you've made what's considered one of the greatest horror games of all time.
Yeah,
there's a giant fucking spotlight, and you're under a microscope.
Yes.
Like, you are expected to deliver, and you already have a diminished budget. And you still got to come in on time now because it needs to come out. It's an expected delivery date. So I mean, you're gonna cut corners. You're gonna do what you've got to do to get it done because Konami is a horrible fucking place to work. So that's why it suffered. It's a bummer because I think it gets a bad rap.
I do too. I remember really liking 3 at the time. I mean, I was going to talk about this later, but so I don't forget. But I also liked Cheryl in the game. Like, Cheryl becomes one of my favorite characters. Like, of all the people you play, Harry, Jason, Cheryl, like, I really enjoyed Cheryl. I enjoyed Jason too. Harry may have been my least favorite of all of them. But again, that could be also just because you look back at, like, graphically and the platform is always just so far, worse or behind than what the newer games were, so it made it harder to get into him. And he looked the least human, like he was all poly. Describes, but I don't know. But I liked Cheryl. I liked her character.
It's great. I love.
Honestly, it's the first time you're playing a female character in the game too. It's at this point, and as far as I remember, I think it's the only time in the franchise you play a female character, if I can recall correctly.
I believe so.
So.
You get to do the Maria stuff. Well, or whatever,
that's like a mini
in 2.
Yeah, that's not a full game though, and that was like basically bonus content. I'm not really counting that.
That's true. That's true.
So basically, Silent Hill 3 follows a now grown up teenage Cheryl Mason from the first game. You open at the Lakeside Amusement Park, it throws you right into the creepy, messed up other world. Is the giant pink bunny mascot suit with blood all over its face. It's funny because that bunny. That's the source of where people who are familiar with the game for Dead by Daylight. That's one of the killer skins the Legion can wear when you're running around as a giant bunny costume. That's from this game. Some people might not know that.
Now, isn't Cheryl's name Heather in this?
Yeah, they. This is where shit gets confused in Silent Hill. Like the plot gets confused with the names here because Cheryl now goes by Heather, but Heather's also basically Alessa, like too, and it's weird.
The reincarnation thing is...
It gets really weird.
They don't explain it very well.
So basically at this point... Now, you talk about how long it took you to get out of the bathroom in number 2. For me, the first time I played this game, I was getting fucking mad because I could not figure out where to fucking go with this amusement. I just ran around this empty amusement park.
Dude, fuck amusement parks in Silent Hill, man.
Fuck them. For like hours. Like, where do I go? What am I supposed to do? There's no items to find. There's no gates. There's no keys. Finally, you end up on like you're supposed to go to this roller coaster where you go through like a turnstile or something, but because of the graphics again, the background, it doesn't look like a door or like a gate you can open. It's just kind of there, kind of hanging open, but it doesn't look like, oh, I can go through here. I must have ran by that thing like a 20 fucking times trying to figure out where I'm supposed to go in this opening sequence. That was my big complaint about number 3. Was I couldn't figure out what the fuck to do.
It's kind of all Silent Hill. There's like, unless they tell you directly where to go, like, or to do, you're like, what the fuck am I supposed to figure this out?
Yeah.
Like, how?
So you end up on a roller coaster where you get hit by the roller coaster and killed, and you wake up in a diner at a mall. Cheryl talks to her dad on a payphone and says, I'm on my way home, and this starts the game proper. And this is the first time where the other world expands outside of Silent Hill itself, which is also kind of weird to think, because in the first 2 games, Silent Hill was just contained to Silent Hill. The foggy world, the other world is all there. Now it's creeping outside the town borders into wherever the hell you are, which I don't know where. I can't remember if they even tell you where this is actually taking place at this point, but it's again a big jump from the previous games. Now for time's sake, I'm not going to, I didn't go into much detail on this one. So I'm going to run through the plot and maybe we'll talk about some stuff as we go, but I'm just going to run through the plot, basically run it down, and try to make this go a little faster than what we did in the first
the reason, before you move on, sorry,
okay,
the reason for that is because, the nightmare world is happening around Heather, and that's why it's taking place outside of Silent Hill, because of the whole deity reincarnation thing that took place in the first one. That's why it's happening around her.
I understand it now after playing, but at the time it's like it's not very clear at first, but you kind of almost have to guess if that's what's happening. But that's why, and it kind of makes sense. Like you can take the demon girl out of Silent Hill, but you can't take Silent Hill out of the demon girl or some shit like that.
There is like a I wouldn't call it a throwaway line because it explains it, but it's like literally like a sentence or two later, some random dialogue that explains, because there's so many gods and things that they name, because this is the cult is back in this one.
Yes.
That they do explain it, but you like gotta catch it.
Yeah.
That like, oh, it would happen because of such and such. Like they don't mention Heather. They don't mention her name or Cheryl or anything. They talk about the god and like what can happen around it, and then you're like, oh, okay, that must be what's happening with Heather. It's fucking random line.
Yeah, it's really weird.
I don't even know what part of the game
I
it's
also
in.
say there's a lot more, I think, readable materials in this game.
There are.
You read a lot of journals and like diaries and texts in this game they did in the previous.
They were trying to beef up the story, and they, because they were limited on the budget, they wanted to give you that content so everything you read is essentially stuff that you were sent. They had set expectations to experience, but you couldn't, so they put it down in text form for you.
So at least you get some they tried to fill in the gap.
And they had minor success in Japan at this point with a Game Boy Advance port of the original Silent Hill, but it was only a novelization, basically like a choose your own adventure novel on the Game Boy Advance, which they never. I don't think they had any here.
That's
I know that
crazy.
didn't come out here, but I don't know if anything like that came out here. But
I've never heard of that.
It was popular in Japan. Didn't come here, so
that's
that was 2003 as well. So they were like, yeah, like why don't instead of making that content, we'll just cut it out, put it in text form, and hopefully it'll be fucking popular.
So Silent Hill, like I said, takes place. We open with Heather's nightmare being trapped in Derek and Music Park, kind of killed by the roller coaster. She wakes at a burger restaurant before she can leave the shopping mall and return home to her father. Private detective Douglas Cartland confronts her, claiming to have information about her birth. Heather doesn't want anything to do with it, evades him, and discovers that the mall now is mostly abandoned except for monsters. She encounters Claudia, a mysterious woman who hints that Heather will be instrumental in bringing about a paradise on Earth. Heather soon finds herself in the otherworld version of the mall, monster-filled, bloodstained, and decaying, and eventually returns to the original shopping mall where she finds Douglas again. He confesses that Claudia had hired him to find her, although he denies any prior knowledge of the otherworld or any greater agenda of Claudia's at this time. Cheryl leaves the mall and resolves to take the subway home. When she returns home to her apartment, she discovers. Now, keep in mind, there's a lot to do in the subway. You get chased by monsters, all that. I'm just kind of skimming through this basic thing here real quick. She returns home to her apartment. She discovers that her father, Harry Mason, from the first game, was murdered on Claudia's order. Claudia informs her that Harry's murder was out of revenge and to engender hatred in Heather. Before leaving, Claudia tells her that she will be waiting for her in Silent Hill.
Basically, she's trying to corrupt her to turn the spirit in her.
It's very Jedi. Dark side.
Exactly. I was just going to say. It's very Star Wars. Yeah. So there's a spirit inside her, right, from the reincarnation scene that we saw in the first game, and Claudia's trying to corrupt it.
Yes.
And let the evil fall through.
It's very Palpatine Anakin.
Yes, exactly. Because if she does, she knows that she can unleash the evil that they attempted to unleash in the first game on the world.
So, intent on killing Claudia, Heather resolves to go to Silent Hill and accepts Douglas' offer to drive her there. On the journey there, Heather learns from a journal left by her father, Harry, that she was the baby left to him at the end of the first Silent Hill game. So she's the miracle divine
from the good ending.
The good ending, the one that I guess her and Harry and Sybil raised. I don't know. I never
because they don't. I don't think you never hear about Sybil.
You never hear about Sybil again.
So it's the ending. It's not the good plus ending. It's just the good ending where Harry gets the baby, but there is no Sybil.
Okay. So because of this, because she is the reincarnation of Alessa, the girl originally intended to birth the cult's god, which was it Samael or something? Samael. Claudia intends for her to bring forth the god. Arriving in a seemingly abandoned Fogshaw town, Heather sets out to find Leonard in a local hospital, revealed to be Claudia's abusive father. He intends to dispose of Claudia as cult leader and attacks Heather after learning that she is not a member of the cult.
Now, when you brought that up in 2, this is the hospital.
Yes, this is the same hospital in 2. This is Brookhaven again.
Yeah.
So, the 2 and 3 connect a lot of locations, of the similar locations.
In 3, you pretty, not everywhere, but like you go to locations from 1 and 2.
All the greatest hits, basically.
That's right.
All the big ones.
Yeah, it's cool.
It is cool. I just want to think, that's one of the positives I wrote later. Where was abusive father, dispose of cult leader. Heather, you defeat Leonard in the hospital. She journeys to the local church via the local amusement park.
Where's this chick with amusement parks?
Yeah. Purported at Douglas's request, when Heather arrives at the amusement park, she finds him wounded, having tried to stop Claudia. At this point, Douglas considers killing Heather himself to stop the god from being born, but decides against it. This scene is actually really good. The conversation they have between is actually a really good scene. If you watch the whole thing, it's
well written.
It's very well written dialogue in that scene.
Because she doesn't. He's making sense to her.
Yes.
She's not like, no, my life. He's like, she's very almost on board with it.
Yeah.
Like, he's very convincing of it. And it, even to you, the player, you're like, that makes a lot of fucking sense.
Mm-hmm. Heather reaches the church and learns that Claudia, who was Alessa's childhood friend, intends to bring about the god's birth to remake the world into a paradise through fire and brimstone, all this mass murder, all that shit. Heather confronts her. This is where shit gets really weird, because I'm going to read this because this is at the like lowest basic sense of what happens here without going into crazy shit, because it gets weird. So
she pukes a baby.
She pukes a baby. Yes, right. Heather confronts her and vomits out a fetus deity, a baby god. Nourished,
full of hatred.
Full of her hatred, yes. So a Sith Lord, basically. And with the aid of a supernatural substance given to her by Harry before his death. So basically what happens is she starts turning Heather Cheryl starts like turning red. And I think she opens up this locket of her dad. And inside the locket is this red liquid, which is the red drug you throw at Sybil in the first game.
Exactly. To make her get rid of the slug thing that's inside of her.
So she like drinks it or licks it or something, and that causes her to vomit up the fetus god, nourished by hatred, which then Claudia...
It gets a little crazier.
Yeah, that's like crazy. So Claudia's like, oh my god, what'd you do? Claudia rushes over to the fetus god.
The hate baby.
And swallows it.
She eats a baby.
Like
Anthropophagus kind of fucking eats the baby.
Eats the fucking baby. And she swallows it whole. To Heather's horror, Claudia dies.
It doesn't stop there, folks.
Nope. Claudia dies. Then after birthing the baby,
again,
Claudia swallows the fetus and gives birth to a god, and then dies. Heather, you have to fight this.
Now it's the fucking final boss.
Now it's the final boss fight of the game. So eventually you fight the boss. You fight, and you win. All right. So. Again,
so to recap, Heather pukes up a baby.
Yes.
Literally.
Literally.
Claudia's like, not on my watch, eats the baby.
That's some good eating right there.
Dies from eating said baby, and then births it. So it travels from her mouth into her stomach and then out her vagina.
Yes, correct.
And then now it's a god.
Now it is a full-blown god with wings and giantness, and it's crazy looking.
And you thought the second one was weird.
Yeah. So also we didn't mention like this. We left out Vincent as a character in this game, who Vincent turns out to be Claudia's son, and who's like trying to help Cheryl or Heather throughout this thing, but for his own reasons. And then Claudia kills her own son before she gives birth to the baby.
He's trying to stop his mother, but not like he's not on the side of good. He's doing it for very selfish reasons. Yes. He just like wants to punish his mom, essentially.
Yeah, pretty much. But we gloss over him. So then after that, you defeat the god baby, or the baby god, or whatever the fuck it is. There's again 3 more endings appear in the game. There's the normal ending, which is the only ending available on the first playthrough of the game. This sees Heather and Doug survive. She goes back out. You see, she exits the final confrontation. Finds Douglas still alive, leaning up against a park bench, and she's holding a knife. He's like, "Is it over?" And she's like, "Yes, but the only thing left is I have to kill you." And she's like, lunges to kill him. And he's like, "Ha, just joking." And they have this sentimental moment where she's like, something like, so you can go back to what's your name? Heather? Like, no, like, it's Cheryl. That's the name my dad gave me, or something like that. And so we go back to that. That's the ending. Those two survive. Then there's the possessed ending, where Heather kills Douglas, which you don't even really see though. It's kind of like you just walk out. You see that Douglas is dead on the ground, blood on him, and you see Cheryl holding a knife, and that's it. You don't actually see her kill him. So it's weird to call it a possessing because it just looks like you walked out there and he just died on his own.
3 did not have good endings or what I thought interesting endings like 1 and 2 did.
I agree.
So my understanding of this one is, and again, this is my own interpretation of it, is that after the fight, in Cheryl Heather's mind, I killed the evil god, but really it was just a struggle for power, and the god eventually possessed her, and she killed Douglas off screen.
Yeah, that's basically what I get at it too.
it.
But to even call that a possessed ending is strange because the entire scenario that you just said, which I agree is left up to your imagination. You have to think of it because otherwise all you see is just her standing over his dead body. There's nothing that implies that she killed him at all. So, and then there's the revenge ending.
Yay! I love this one. It's my favorite one in 3.
Which it is a joke ending, accessible by performing certain in-game actions.
So it's very reminiscent of 1. So to get the aliens to come in the first one, you pick up an object on a playthrough, and you have to activate it at like 6 or 7 locations in the game in the first one on the PlayStation. You have to do almost the exact same thing here in this one.
You have to get like something called like the Heather's Gem or something like that, and you have to use it in different locations and do this. Just like some of the things I did mention about in the in number 2, where like when I mentioned it, when you're going down that hallway near the end and you're hearing Mary's conversation with James. Like if you listen to that entire voiceover conversation, you get one ending. But if you run down the hall and open the door before the conversation ends, it's one thing that triggers one of the bad endings.
Yeah, you'll either get the Mary or Maria ending depending on that.
Yeah, and it's one of the triggers. So it's a joke ending. Like I said, Heather reunites with Harry, and this was her. And Harry, so she goes home. She goes back home, opens in her house. Harry orders his UFOs because he's been abducted by aliens in the first game to blow up Silent Hill. So she's like, he gets back. I have some more on this in a second, but hold on, I'll do this right. Where's the UFO? Yeah, so basically what happens at the point where Cheryl in the game, where if you do all the stuff you need to activate this ending in game. So when the point in the game where she gets through the subway and she returns home to her apartment. She returns home and finds her father dead, only this time Harry's still alive. She tells Harry about Claudia in Silent Hill. Harry who's hanging out with his alien buddies because they're like playing poker or something together. And James from number 2 is also there.
Yes.
They decide to take revenge on Silent Hill for messing with Cheryl, so they gather up their UFO fleet, fly off, and destroy Silent Hill by bombing it and laser beaming it into rubble.
This is great. So they cut out the entire
and the game just ends
third
there.
act.
Yeah, the game just ends right there. You don't even have to play the game after that.
Done. No baby eating or nothing.
Yeah. So yeah, you have to do that. You have to acquire the Heather beam, then replay the game. Use the beam to kill at least 30 monsters before you get to Harry's apartment. So that's that one. The possessed ending. To acquire the possessed ending, you must kill over 100 enemies displayed in the results screen. You must also acquire 1,000 points of damage. So basically, let every monster in the game hit you once. Forgive the person in the confession box, which is fucking creepy. Since you spend much of the game being a vicious killer there for killing everything and taking damage, the possession ending cues in. So it cannot be acquired in your first playthrough, and is best tried if you want to do it at the normal or hard mode of the game, and with the unlimited submachine gun, which you get from after one of the playthroughs. So that's basically it. So I will say the normal ending: you kill the god. Cheryl and Doug both live. The credits roll, and Cheryl, as the credits roll, is kneeling down in front of Harry's grave as music and credits roll. A few things I want to talk about for this game. Some other spooky shit that I liked. That again we gloss over. One, I'm gonna say this last because I actually have the soundbar of this. I'll play for you. So the horses on the carousel, when you get back to this format, if you hit them, actually neigh. Like they're alive, which is fucking weird because they're obviously not, but they acted. I like when you fight your darker evil half in the Otherworld carousel too, like Evil Cheryl.
Oh yeah,
fight Evil Cheryl. That's a really good one. And then we talked about in the crying girl in the confessional booth in the church is also really good. I think that's kind of creepy scene too. It's like, who's this mystery girl? Why is she here? Why is she crying?
Because you don't even have to do that part.
No,
when you go into the church, it's a faint crying, and as you move towards the confessional, it obviously gets louder, and then there's one you can go into, and then you can do it. But you don't have to do it at all. It's not part of any. You don't need to do it unless you want that one ending. But like, it's just so weird. I love the shit that they do that, and they didn't have little side quests. It was essentially the decisions that you made at the end of the game that would affect your endings pretty much. This one has that again, much like the first one, right? That's why I like it so much.
So this other moment that I thought was really creepy and kind of scary, again, harkens back kind of to the first game where you're walking. It happens when you're in the other world and a phone starts ringing. In the first game, and you answer the phone, and it's like your daughter or baby girl talking to you. But in this one, it is a fucking creepy ass guy who starts singing "Happy Birthday," and it's really creepy. I thought it was scary. I actually grabbed a soundbite of this, so I'm gonna actually play this this part of the game for you, and you just gotta check out how creepy and weird it is. Because keep in mind, when you get to this part of the game, you're in the other world, so it's all metal, rust, and there's nothing there, and you hear a phone ringing in a locker. You open up a locker, and there's a payphone just thrown in this locker. This bust up broken payphone that starts ringing, and
more callbacks, no pun intended, to the first one.
So yeah, here's that sequence.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear. Oh, I forgot your name.
Who are you?
Oh, okay, thanks. Happy birthday, dear. Who are you? Happy birthday to you. Happy 31st birthday.
Is this Leonard?
That's the murderer's name, not my name. I'm not your beloved Stanley either. He's underground now. His new name is Number 7. Oh, but don't worry about that now. It's time to celebrate your birthday.
You've got me mistaken for someone else. Today's not
mistaken. Today is your 24th birthday, and I have a present for you. Which do you prefer? To give pain or to receive it? You can have the one you hate the most. Happy birthday to you.
That's the whole phone call, and it's such a creepy good moment. Like, it's so what
it's real. It's very. It's kind of dumb when he first sings it, and it gets a little silly, and then when he's like, "That's the murder,"
yeah,
then it just fucking just takes it all the way to the top.
Yeah.
You're like, all right, now I'm fucking terrified. He's like, and it's not Stanley either. It's like,
very,
whoa,
yeah. It's very Scream on for a
shit,
second too.
yeah. That's the first part. It's silly. I crack up every time.
But it's so good. And then it's also weird as far as 31st birthday. She's turning 18, and then it just goes from 34 to 24. I'm like, why did the number change? I'm like, but I believe if I remember, 34, 24, I think is a code you need or something later in the game. But it's just it's such a great example of all the weird, crazy, creepy ass shit that goes on.
That's another
in these
thing
games.
that I don't think you need to activate, right? You don't need to do that.
I don't think so. And number 7, when they say he's number 7 now, is corresponds to a corpse in one of the rooms that's underneath the sheet. There's this room full of corpses. They all have numbers on them, and number 7 is the one.
He's full of jelly beans.
Yeah, he's full of jelly beans. So I mean that's basically Silent Hill 3. It does seem to get a lot of some people, I guess, dog it for some reason. Probably because like the reasons I said at the beginning, because of the lower budget and rush time. But
it's not too. There's more action. It's a shorter game. There was no big jump like they did from 1 to 2, so people were expecting a lot more.
Obviously, it's clearly not as psychologically disturbing as number 2 was, so maybe they could step back there. But I still think overall it was a solid game. It gave us Cheryl, who I think was a great character. I really, I liked her. I kind of like the cult thing's a little weird, but at the same time, I like that they brought
it
full
back
circle
and
with
Cheryl. Didn't really have to bring back the whole drug ring thing.
Yeah, they didn't
which
do
is
drug ring.
never mentioned again.
No, it's not. So that's the big 3 in the series. That's the first 3, and to me, that's really all that matters. That's what, to me, when you say 1 through 3, call it a day.
Yeah.
But no, of course, like all gaming franchises, they keep going on pumping them out. So then came number 4, The Room, which I won't lie, I never played it. It did not appeal to me. I don't want to be stuck in this room or doing this. I never played 4. I've watched some videos on it. I'm like, okay, they do get out of the room and do some stuff. But again, it's not in Silent Hill proper.
Doesn't take place in Silent Hill at all.
And it tries to introduce some more weird lore with Walter Sullivan and stuff. They try to touch back on him later in the series too, but they start making up more shit. It gets at this point, it goes down starts going down the Resident Evil rabbit hole. Like it just kind of starts going like, we're making shit because we have to.
Yeah, because I mean, and they were trying some stuff for sure. They really tried it with the next 2, which was one was Origins, which was a prequel.
Yes,
but it was dumb. It wasn't
Origins. I think was he the one with the truck driver? Then that was one of the truck driver.
Yeah,
and then
it came out on the PSP, and then they released it on the PS2.
Okay, and then there was Downpour, where you play a criminal being escorted on a bus that wrecks, and
that came out on PS3 and Xbox, because Shattered Memories came out on PS2 and Wii, and that's the remake of Silent Hill 1.
I want to talk about Shattered Memories because after Downpour, I think was Homecoming.
That's the last one.
I did play Homecoming for a bit.
That one's actually pretty good.
I never finished it.
It's much more action.
Yeah,
it's very Resident Evil 5.
Very, yes, exactly. Again, the storyline I don't think is very Silent Hilly. It goes back to the background, like the founders of the town. Let's make up all this backstory that really, I think, takes away from the actual games of the first two, their scariness and their mysteriousness. And we started adding that backstory stuff. I'm like, to me, it took away from what made the first game so good.
They started adding new gameplay elements, more jump scares. One of the big things is like breakable weapons. Like your weapons break, and it's like a real pain in the ass to have to deal with. It's very dumb. In some games, they break too fast, and some, like, you carry so many, it's almost ridiculous.
Yeah. And then they came Shattered Memories, which was kind of a reimagining of the first
Silent Hill game.
1 and maybe 3 or 2. Like, I think it combined elements of both or some of the other.
So it starts very similar to 1,
but
and
I kind of liked it.
Quickly takes a fucking left turn to, like, instead of you don't go to like the Elseworld nowhere places. You go to like ice worlds.
Yeah, it's like ice instead of rusty metal and Tetanus World. It's ice. And,
it's the Poltergeist area from Poltergeist 3. Tom Skerritt's there.
But I think, like, to me, it's kind of like to this game. I maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but it's kind of like I look at like the Walking Dead comic book and the Walking Dead show. Like, Shattered Memories is like the Walking Dead the show, whereas instead of the comic, where it doesn't follow the comic religiously, but there's the characters, there's the world environment, but they change it enough that it's not exactly a shot for shot or a complete remake of the first game. They cut their own touches on it and make it something new. So again, I haven't played it, but I've seen enough videos on it that I kind of like some of it seemed kind of interesting. Like, it kind of like, I'm intrigued to maybe try playing it someday. I don't know. Did you ever actually play this one?
I have it on the Wii.
Okay.
And I've never finished it because when I got it, I like the Wii, and I don't mind the whole fucking moving the shit around. But by like the time I got it on the Wii, I'd like already moved on from that console. So I played it a little bit, then I just kind of haven't gone back.
Yeah.
But like, I'd had a bad taste of Silent Hill at that time. I hadn't played Homecoming or Downpour yet, but I had done Origins, which I didn't care for. I had done this one, which I hadn't finished, but I have a PS Vita, so I got Book of Memories, which is like the last Silent Hill game ever made, but it is a straight up dungeon crawling RPG.
Which one? Shattered Memories?
Book of Memories.
Book of Memories.
It's only on the Vita, and it is a no joke, hands down, 100% fucking turn-based battle fucking RPG game.
Weird. That's fucking strange. Like that again, that shouldn't be Silent Hill.
Yeah. Trust me. So then I was like, all right, well,
I know, and that's sad about this franchise. Like, it started off so good, so iconic, so groundbreaking, and then just kept pumping more into it. Again, because Konami's greedy money hunting, and that is
they stopped letting Team Silent. So Team Silent, they worked on 1 through 3, no questions asked, and then with 4, like I said, it was being developed by an independent studio that Konami had owned, and then they forced it into a Konami game, a Silent Hill game, and Team Silent was a part of it. But that is the last game. After that, it was developed over here in the West. So Western Americanized Konami studio did everything after that, and that's why there was such a drastic change. That 4, big drastic change, but it's really not a Silent Hill game.
Yeah.
So don't even count that. So then, like, you move on to the next ones. It's like, well, these are all developed by people over here who cannot think the same way that Team Silent does, and so they just ran it into the ground. And Konami's like, well, people are going to buy it because it's got Silent Hill.
Exactly.
It's essentially the Pokemon approach. You fucking slap Pokemon aside of a game, people can pay for it. Yeah, I'm a sucker.
I think the same thing that happened with Resident Evil. Once you got 5, 6, and 5 and 6 were the same way. Like with Resident Evil, buy with Resident Evil, and Operation Raccoon City and Operation
that Nachos got fucked on that one.
And Resident Evil Survivor and all this shit. Like people buy, you slap that name on it. It's like, and they suck. They just Eventually, it sucks. It seems like so many good franchises end up going down that road to ruin, basically.
Well, I'd say that consumers are equally to blame.
Yeah,
because when you buy something, you're like, it's not new enough. It's like, well, no, I fucking kept the same thing, but I gave you a new game. Like, isn't that? If I change it too much, you get pissed. If I don't change it enough, you get pissed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
100%. Yeah.
It's a double-edged sword. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
Exactly. But overall, like, I still, Silent Hill, to me, 1 through 3 will always have a special place in my memories and my gaming history and nostalgia. I look back at that, and I know especially Aaron, bringing back, I know he is 100% through Resident Evil guy. I look back and I loved Resident Evil 2. It was when they first came out, it was great first time. But looking back, as I kind of think I'm more of a, when it comes to the horror aspect of it, horror, scariness, the mental fucktitude that puts you through. Like, I much more I think I'm a Silent Hill guy at the end of the day. I think they're the better games overall when it comes to horror and the psychology of it all, and just I think there's some of the best horror games, especially maybe not. They won't hold necessarily to like some of the games today because, again, better graphics, better storytelling, they're able to do more things. But for the time that these games came out, 99 to 2003, in that time period, I don't think you can find anything better at horror games than the Silent Hills, the first 3. I don't think anything really holds a light to those games. I don't know what your thoughts on that. If you have a counter argument or a counterpoint, or if you just agree.
So I am very much in the camp of Resident Evil, but I'm not as close-minded as this Aaron Southworth that you speak of, that fucking smooth, buttery voice that he has. I had no problem venturing out to it. I like Resident Evil because I'm a big zombie guy, right?
Oh yeah,
but
I am too.
I love Silent Hill, and I think it's a great. Those first 3 games is just fantastic. They're just so much fun, and they're very scary. That you should never pigeonhole yourself and be like, no, I only want this because this is what I like. You're really missing out, and get on board now, because I will tell you, as a game collector, it's harder and harder to come by these. It shouldn't be. You want to look, go to eBay. You're gonna look up Silent Hill PlayStation 1, and it's $100 or more. It shouldn't be.
No,
it's sold multiple millions of copies. That's why it's a PS1 greatest hits. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of them out there. It should never be that expensive, but it is for whatever reason. So
again, nostalgia stake, and then there's people who are just idiots who think, oh, it's an old game, and try to.
So you can get it.
Think that every old game out there, I can jack up prices because it's old now.
You can get it for cheap on the PlayStation Store for like your PS3. Maybe I don't know if you can get it.
You can get it, on Xbox. I got like the
so you can get
Silent Hill HD collection.
Yeah, so you can get the first one for $5. You can get the HD collection. You can still buy now for $20 to $25.
Yeah.
I would recommend that. That gives you 2 and 3, and so you can experience these games for all an investment of $30.
Yeah.
That's a fucking hell of a deal.
And I do want to clarify. I'm not saying I'm Silent Hill over Resident Evil all the way. I'm not saying that. I loved Resident Evil 2, and I love zombie games. Like I can't count the number of zombie games I've bought.
It's just different. Sometimes I'm in the mood for steak. Sometimes I want fucking tacos.
But I'm just saying, in comparison, because they get compared so often that they're in the survival horror genre that I feel like you had to pick a side. And I'm saying when it comes to the actual horror aspect of it, Silent Hill to me takes the cake, as they're scarier.
They're much scarier games.
They actually fill, I think, the category of horror more than the Resident Evil. Resident Evil, yes, it's zombies and those everything. Well, that's horror game because it has zombies. It's not Resident Evil at the base of now. Is really more of an action game now. Run and gun, shoot with puzzles. They became that. First one had some great jumps, had some great moments, and I will always remember the fucking first time I walked down that goddamn hallway and the dogs jumped through that window.
Jumps out at you.
That was one of the best all-time best jump scares I would say in gaming because that was the founding father of survival horror and jump scares was that moment. I remember in 1996 sitting in Aaron's basement. Aaron and I had played that game already, and again, I mentioned my friend Ty. We're like, Ty, you got to come over and play this game. You got to play this game. It's so cool. And we knew what was coming. So Aaron and I were sitting there off to the side watching him play, and we're like, kind of like Mr. Burns and everything. As he comes up on that hollow, we're like looking like, yes, it's about to happen. And the dog jumps, and he's like ah! And watch him jump for the first time. So, I mean, I get them. Resident Evil had those moments in the first game, but quickly after that, like even in number 2, it started going more towards the action. I think starting to get away from the horror and started going more to action. But I think Silent Hill maintained that horror aspect longer and did it better.
Well, because like you said, to build on that, Resident Evil, the musical cues let you know you're safe. Certain rooms, you know that things can't get into. You're good. You're safe. You're fine. You can take a moment to breathe. In Silent Hill, you don't get that. It's always intense.
Yes.
You never know what's around the next corner. And even if you've played it before, there's no reprieve. Like, if you go into a house, yes, if you've played it, you're like, all right, I know nothing's going to get me in here. But the music doesn't tell you that. Like, it's always intense. You're always on edge in these first 3 games. It's a pain in the ass, to be perfectly honest with you.
And, like, well, part of it is, like I said, they do the the showing, not telling type thing, or it's different. That's not really right. But, I mean, they don't show you everything. You have that.
It's all this stuff going on in the background that you hear but don't see.
The fog, the darkness, you can't see it, but you can hear it. And that just puts you on edge, and it adds to that fear factor. When, like I said, in Resident Evil, you see everything there. You see all the zombies. Oh, there's a bunch of bodies laying down. Okay, I know those guys can come back to life. I can just tell. Or I walk in this room, there's a zombie there. Okay, here's my path through. Yeah. You can see it all. Silent Hill didn't do that. They basically took your sight away from you, which was one reason that made it, again, so damn scary and intenseful for its time. But those are the games. The games were a success, and that brings us to the movies. It launched 2 movies. Silent Hill 2 movies that were made. I think what we're going to do is we're going to make this a 2-parter for time's sake. We're going to turn back. We will cover Silent Hill the movies in part 2 of this Silent Hill retrospective. But for now, we're just going to end it here and cover
bringing you more of that content that you crave.
Thank you, Cincinnati Jeff. Turn back. We'll tune in next time for part 2 of the Silent Hill retrospective, when we'll cover the movies. We'll talk about those and whatever else. I don't know, but so I hope you enjoy it. If you haven't, go play the games. Check them out. I don't think you'll be disappointed. They're really good. Yes, they're old. They might not hold up graphically, but the stories hold up. The themes hold up, and it's definitely worth checking out if you have not played them already. With that said, again, thanks for listening. Thank you very much for Cincinnati Jeff from Here Comes the Spooky Podcast. Check them out as well. Cincinnati Jeff will be back with me for the movie for part 2. But till then, guys, watch more horror movies and play more horror games. And always
stay spooky
and keep it tight.